OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, very welcome along. It is Wednesday morning. It's Eoin with you all the way through until 10 a.m. this morning. As ever, get involved. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. How excited are you on a scale of 0 to 150 about the fact that it's going to be England versus Italy in the European Championships final on Sunday evening? It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, by the way. I'm sure a lot of you are still thinking, oh, it'll be an afternoon. But it's not. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff this Sunday evening. And I think England are very excited about the fact that they're through to face Italy after Italy's win on penalties last night.
The excitement is at 151, I think it's fair to say. The pubs are going to be open in England. You can sit out and watch your team win on penalties if that's what necessarily happens on Sunday. And we're set for what's going to be a brilliant few days of build-up after the insignificant events of tonight.
What are you talking about tonight? It says in the Telegraph that England's World Cup hero is coming home. This is that's a picture of Geoff Hurst. You can't see that there at the bottom. There's Geoff Hurst, and then on the top it's some kids with England flags. So Geoff Hurst, whose hat-trick sealed victory 55 years ago, set to be pitchside on Sunday night. This is a story that I hadn't seen. So Geoff Hurst will take up a pitchside role at Wembley on Sunday night should England reach their first major tournament final since he scored a hat-trick to win the 1966 World Cup. His presence at such a historic game, the first major tournament final for England in 55 years, would be particularly poignant. Only 3 other players in the 66 team are still alive out of Sir Alf Ramsey's starting 11 following the deaths last year of Jack Charlton and Nobby Stiles. It was Sir Geoff who inspired the BBC's Kenneth Wolstenholme to utter the immortal words, "They think it's all over, it is now." Sir Geoff's hat-trick sealed England's 4-2 extra-time win over West Germany. It's understood Sir Geoff has been given a role at the side of the pitch, giving half-time analysis close to the turf in a programme anchored by Gary Lineker, who played for England in the 1990 World Cup in Italy, going out to Germany on penalties.
BBC don't have the game? Gary Lineker is otherwise...
No, they do.
I thought this is going to be live on TV.
Yeah, it's on TV, yeah.
All right. Like, I mean, what's... Okay.
Sources inside the BBC said it was a great coup to have Sir Geoff lined up. Hurst is one of only a select few people who can actually relate to what it's like being in a final as an England player.
That's true. Facts only. So it's what happens, like, I mean,
if they lose.
Things go all right tonight, it's like a quick call to Geoff Hurst, and it's like...
No, mate, sorry.
Sorry.
Tough luck. I think they'd probably still bring him out, right? Because... 96 final, that was obviously in Wembley. I don't actually remember. Was it Olivier Bierhoff's goal? Was that the 96 final? Germany win that? Well, they're obviously in the final.
I think so.
Was that a golden goal? I can't even remember.
No.
So he obviously, I don't know, there has been a final at Wembley in this competition since 1966. So I don't know. It's like Denmark don't need to show up, according to this stuff.
Well, I guess you got to have plans in place. It's just Hurst.
You do. It's just the way it's reported.
Hurst will show up, and like Brian Laudrup will be sitting in his seat, and it's like, sorry, there's no ticket for you, mate. And then he's got to get the tube home to watch, I guess, Denmark against Italy on television, which obviously wouldn't be a great outcome for him personally.
It's unclear what further role Sir Geoff may have at the final in an official capacity. Fans will be clamouring for him to have the honour of handing England the European Championship trophy, should they triumph.
We're not going to get a member of the royal family, no? Are they otherwise engaged?
Kensington Palace announced yesterday the Duke of Cambridge will take a seat in the royal box for the game.
Who's that, William?
I don't know. One of them. But it probably isn't Harry at this stage.
Philip, anyway.
We can rule those two out for different reasons. And what about your man, the other one?
Andrew,
the dark sheep.
The non-sweat provider.
Oh yeah, he's too busy having pizza.
Yeah. So well, it could be him. I mean, they're really burying the lead if there was been a decision made during the week that Prince Andrew was going to be
certainly
the man who is presenting the medals on Sunday night.
If you want the eyes of the world on you. And we cut now to live footage of Gillane. 7:34 this morning, if you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Henry Winter, you want me to read Henry Winter? It could be the best of times, it really could be. It will certainly be the most passionate. England possess the players with the skill, work ethic and tactical preparation, the belief in their abilities and the desire to fulfil the hopes of their families at Wembley, their 55,000 fans screaming support from the stands, and the 25 million gathered in front rooms, village halls, fan parks and pubs across the country. But most importantly, Gareth Southgate and his players possess the humility to win. The thing is, they do possess the humility to win. This is factually correct. the team are pretty humble. Although just in the last week, you've started to see some stuff where they've been lured into saying things that actually don't read that well. The Mails, the English Daily Mail has a Harry Kane, I'm unstoppable kind of vibe to the stuff that he's saying. It's like, yeah, I feel pretty confident. I'm probably at a bit of a peak. And that's the splash is like, you can't stop me, Denmark, don't even try. And if you do, my mates are going to get you.
So it could be the best of times. It's like, so Henry Winter's going full Dickens this morning is what you're telling me.
Yeah. There was another bit about, there was another bit from that I wanted to read, but I'm missing it there. Matthew Syed, who we always hold up on this show as a paradigm of genius. I mean, just think of the amazing level of support that he had for British cycling through that whole era where David Brailsford and his marginal gains were the single only reason that British cycling dominated and that all those people won those Tours de France. It was an amazing achievement for British cycling. Matthew Syed was one of the chroniclers in chief. Because David Walsh was there too, writing the book, embedded with British cycling that whole time as well. One also hopes that the decency of Southgate, 50, and his team may impact upon the England fans. There's always been a boorish element among supporters, and we heard it in full voice against Germany, booing the national anthem with such venom that it was difficult for the visiting players to sing along. Yet this tradition seems even more risible than ever, at least to me, given the England team are self-evidently mortified by it. Is it too much to hope that the fans will keep it buttoned up tonight? Even Matthew Syed notices this. That's a good point.
Yeah, like, I mean, the brutal booing of the Danish anthem is going to be something that'll rattle them. Of course, like, Kasper Schmeichel is the reason why they'll boo the anthem, asking the question, has it ever come home, yesterday in the press conference, which is probably as close to stirring the pot as you're likely to see. Like, you talk about Harry Kane allowing the mask to slip somewhat, talking about himself as Superman or something like that. But is that really the tone that we're getting here, or is that actually just a splash on a single word?
No, it's not his fault. It's just that, I mean, you'd expect him. Although they are posing, and the pictures are ridiculous. Have you seen the pictures? Like, in front of, they've obviously got him to, like, pull his jersey and pull his crest, and, like, he's just one bit short of, like, dry riding the Lions. Maybe that might be a bit inappropriate. The Times, the London Times, their headline, "You've made us proud, brought a smile to our faces, even allowed us to dream. Tonight, England, it's time to take the final step."
No lion is safe in that England camp, that's for sure.
The final step. And then the Telegraph's, "You may have a sense of dread and it will be nervy, but this night is for heroes, and England say they are ready to roar." They like the old lions and the imagery, don't they?
Yeah, like if you're going to pick one animal, I mean, I guess it's a great question. Maybe that's where they came up with it in the first place. If you could be one jungle animal, what would you pick? And England decided to not only be one lion, but to be three of them, and it's pretty fearsome. I think that they're in a place now where they've talked themselves into this idea of modesty so much at this point where they've actually just got sick of being modest, and it's like, this is just so boring. Let's just, come on, what are we going to do? Build up to the World Cup or to the European Championships final for 4 days? That is just not good enough. We need a full week of this. And good on them. Do
you think so?
Yeah. Like, I mean,
what if Denmark beat them?
Then it will have probably nothing to do with what we're seeing at the moment.
Do you think?
Probably nothing to do. Like, I think it's a nice, entertaining sideshow. The way, like, it's going to be funny, the disappointment that people like Boris Johnson will feel having allowed pubs to open and having posed beside ginormous England flags. That will be funny, but it's all a sideshow to the actual reality that they're feeling in camp at the moment, which is that Denmark pose a pretty real threat, that they have all been beaten by inferior sides at one point or another in their careers, and Denmark have been going extremely well in this thing so far.
They know a lot of the Danes. They've played against and played with a lot of the Danes.
Yeah, exactly, and they know that the qualities that they have to bring tonight. So, like, I don't think that it's a sense whatsoever that within the camp they're thinking about Sunday, but it is quite funny that everything around it is building up to a crescendo this Sunday, and I think I'm now at the point where the best outcome would be to see England lose tonight. It would certainly be the funniest outcome.
Who was somebody on our show yesterday saying that the performance, I can't even remember now, I've listened to so much of this stuff, the performance one of the most recent performances where they win 2-0. Was it the Germany game? The Germany game, where like this is essentially can go either way. No one's really sure if he's picked the right team. The fact that the couple of chances that they score go in, the fact that Muller misses, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's a tactical genius, and they get the rub of the green. And then the next game, obviously Ukraine are completely useless, essentially. At this stage of a tournament, they are way out of their depth. All of the seeds of any defeat at any point are there for you if you look back and check them. But because it's a tournament, you don't need to go back and look at them if you keep winning. It's only when a team loses that you retrospectively go, oh, look at that. In particular, in the Ukraine game, does anybody remember Jordan Pickford's like 80 seconds of complete madness? Where he was just like running around the place, flailing, shouting and screaming. I mean, did anybody remember that? Do you not have a vision of that happening against Denmark, where the opposition is actually genuinely class, composed, feeling like they're supposed to be here, feeling like they're a team of destiny, that they are unburdened by the weight of history, rather they feel a surge from the fact that the last time the team from that country reached the semi-finals, they went on and won it completely unexpectedly. The fact that their teammate who died in front of them is resurrected and come back to life, and now is apparently going to be a guest at the final. Who's going to be the more emotional guest at the final? Jeff Hurst and his 1966 hat-trick, or Christian Eriksen? Does that mean that like it's fated that either of these two teams in the semi-finals tonight are going to... I don't know. I think this is very close to a 50-50 game tonight, particularly because it's a semi-final. And if you think about it, right, we had Daniel Harris in the show yesterday confidently say, I think Italy are going to beat Spain because there's no way you would say Spain are a better team or the best team in the tournament so far. And yet Spain's performance last night was absolutely sensational. They were brilliant, like controlled the ball, brave on it, tigerish in the tackle, physically robust, able to take almost anything that the Italians threw at them, and then just flaky when it comes to a penalty shootout like they have been in the past. I don't see England sweeping Denmark aside tonight.
No, I can't see it either. I think Denmark have been outstanding. They've been one of the best teams you've seen in the tournament. I do think that Spain are a better team than Denmark, and Spain had a clear problem going into the game last night, which was that they will always have the lion's share of possession, but probably just had no one to put the ball in the back of the net, and that came back to bite them again last night. I don't think Denmark have any obvious problem like that. I think Denmark's problem going into the game tonight is their ceiling just isn't that high. It shouldn't be the ceiling of a team who can actually win this tournament, but some of the performances they've shown have been absolutely brilliant. They've gone through spells of games where they've looked as good as any other team in the tournament, but they have been for spells. There have been spells of other games where they've gone behind, where they've looked like more of a mid-tier European nation than a top-tier European nation, and England are undeniably a top-tier nation at the moment. So if both teams play up to their expected level tonight, England win the game. But that is just I think that's such a naive expectation given everything that is at play. Rarely do you see two teams absolutely getting the best for themselves in high-stakes European games. There will always be a team in the ascendancy, and I think that these moments that Denmark will have tonight, I think they could be like. I absolutely think they can turn England over tonight.
The second half of the first half, when Ukraine looked dangerous but just didn't have enough quality on the pitch to force a good chance. That would have been very interesting to see if they'd scored at that point, what would have happened in that game. But as you say, they just didn't have the quality for it. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We've obviously buried the lead. The single biggest thing that happened in world sport last night was the biggest victory in maybe in Kildare hurling history. I'm not sure, but certainly in my lifetime as a 44-year-old man who was raised in the little pocket of South Kildare that is a hurling, I would not say stronghold, but in a hurling house with the community of hurling fans from Kildare. I don't remember Kildare ever winning a match of this magnitude. They beat Wexford in the under-20 championship last night. I think we have the footage of the the deep in stoppage time.
We decided who the free man was going to be. They also worked the sweeper, which probably suited us. We just keep working the ball. You decide where the ball is going to go, not your opposition, and that's what the lads do. They stuck with the process, and they showed serious heart, serious. What's the word? I don't know. You guys have better words than me. You can put in whatever you want there.
Cojones, Pat.
Cojones. Yeah.
But it is a massive advantage having a pre-taker like
yes,
him,
he kept the scoreboard ticking over, and that's his job. They're all willing to put their body on the line for Kildare hurling, for their families, for their friends, and that's what matters. These guys, they even done their social responsibility. They went off and raised money for Bardstown during the year, and that showed that there was something in them. When I saw that, they went off and raised something like 20 odd grand there during the year, running from Malin to Bislin or whatever and back to Newbridge. That shows that they're not just in it for whatever they can get out of it.
I can't tell you what the experience of watching this. As I was watching it on Twitter, essentially the scores coming in, and it's like, oh, Kildare are like 4 or 5 points up half time, 4 or 5 points up into the second half, down a man, and then it's like ticking into stoppage time, and it's penalty for Wexford to level it up. And you're like, Jesus, right? And then Wexford are ahead, and it's like, okay, Grant, I'm going to stop looking at this now because it's only going to piss me off. And then all of a sudden Twitter explodes, and you're like, they scored 2 points in stoppage time to win it by a point.
Incredible. The question is, like, is this, do Kildare win in a senior All-Ireland at hurling or football first?
I mean, trust you to ruin things, Eoin. I want to just credit some people there. Leinster GAA with the video, and that was Southeast Radio there. So that was Kildare under-20 manager Pat English talking to Southeast Radio, played over the final moments of the match. That was stats hole footage posted by Leinster GAA. Honestly, like, you can't. I don't know if you can understand this, right? Because you come from like Britain, essentially. When it comes to GAA, you are one of those empires in which the sun never sets, right? It's an All Ireland every 3 years. That's just the rules. You're from Kerry. Your under 20 team wins 4 All Irelands in a row, and no one even bats an eyelid. It's no big deal. So 5 in a row. Did you do 5 in a row? I can't even remember. You don't even know either.
I have no idea.
Like, I can't explain it. It's obviously years and years and years of hard work that have gone in by 3 or 4 clubs. If you look at it, like, whatever Naas are doing in hurling, the rest of the county needs to go and study it, because they're the backbone of the minor team, and they're the backbone of, I think they had 12 members on the minor team that was announced this week, and I think they had 6 or 8 on that panel there as well. But, like, just the sheer outpouring of joy that it must be for those people who have kept hurling going in Kildare to finally see something like this at this level.
Yeah, like, but that's my point. Like, this is a real thing. Like, beating Wexford at under 20 level is not a fluke. Like, I mean, it's, first of all, I would put way more credence in any under 20 result than any minor result. That's why I immediately look towards seniors. Like, this is a real thing that Kildare obviously have going. Like, they won the game with 13 men last night against what should be a superpower of Leinster hurling. Like, there are moments like this that we see big shocks in Leinster from time to time in hurling, but it is generally from, wasn't it Westmeath who beat Kilkenny a few years ago at underage level? Like, Westmeath are a few rungs above, have been there or thereabouts ahead of Kildare at senior level for the last little while. So to me, this spells growth, and this spells a future where this sport could potentially be something that Kildare people can get behind. That's all I'm asking this morning. And maybe it's wrong to just jump ahead rather than being like, let's just soak this in, because you don't get shocks like this where a Wexford gets beaten by Kildare in the hurling too often.
Antrim beat Wexford in the under-21 All-Ireland semi-final. It was 2013. Jesus, I was trying to think when that was. 2013 was when that happened. And it didn't herald a new dawn for Antrim hurling, but I think you'd hope that the structures are in place here to capitalise on this. So congratulations. It's genuinely a very shocking thing where one of the second-tier counties can actually beat one of the first-tier counties, just because it's such a difficult sport for small pockets to. We were talking about this yesterday when Enda McGinley was on the show, that there's like not that many senior clubs in hurling in counties like Kildare, whereas obviously there are loads of football clubs, and so it's much easier to build a football team in any of the counties and to get that standard going. So massive congratulations. I think Kildare football, by the way, Eoin, is on its way back and will definitely win an All-Ireland before the hurlers.
Fair enough. Just asking the question, and they are in a good place at the moment, Kildare. I guess it's just
such a gentle troll.
The largeness of the beast that needs to be tamed in one province is a bit larger than the beast in another province. But then again, you're coming from a much higher base in football. I'm just really interested in Kildare in general as a GAA county. I think you've said it many times before. The resources should be there to
the playing population is definitely
playing
there.
population. That's what I mean. It should be
and
there
the ability to
contain.
generate finances there.
And like that's something that's not going to go anywhere over the next little while, as well as, and like that's for a number of different reasons. Like you will see a continuing migration maybe from areas of Dublin towards Kildare, which probably hasn't filled up yet, I suspect, when it comes to the cost of living and all that sort of thing. It's not affected by rural depopulation then, so it's kind of in between the two things.
Yeah, but the trouble is that all those Dubs who move out keep their kids.
Dublin-ness. That is the problem, isn't it? Yeah, I forgot about that.
I've got to give that up.
Forgot about that.
Once you cross the border there, you should be like, no, white jerseys only.
You just need to, you personally need to find where, I don't know, does the Dart go out to Kildare? No. The commuter train, and just like take an axe to it. The M7, just take an axe to it. Stop all roads going to Dublin and
build that wall.
And build that wall between Kildare and Dublin.
7:51 this morning. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock on the show this morning. I'm going to talk with Paddy Agnew about the Italians. We've got the papers coming your way at 8:05. England with Lloyd-Hughes at 8:20. John Duggan doing a lap of honour after virtual insanity last week. Tipped a 33-1 winner and is in profit for the year. Cavan's Conor Madden. We're talking to him about their very interesting 12 months. Ulster football champions and now in Division 4 in the Alliance Football League, so back in championship action, and can they rekindle last season's form? And then we'll talk more football with Phil Egan at around about 9:10. We want to hear from you though. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, and of course you can get us on the YouTube comments this morning. I think we've got Paddy Agnew with us. No, we'll get Paddy in just a moment. What was your standout from the game last night, Eoin?
Chiellini and Jordi Alba. That was the moment of the night, no question. And I have this down as a really smart piece of mind games as much as anything else. Like, maybe it's not. Maybe it is this great moment where Chiellini is like, look, this could go either way, and I'm just happy to be here. And in fairness, he's had a smile on his face in really big moments at multiple different times during this tournament already. So it's in keeping with him. I think that people who didn't love Chiellini before last night now have him as their favourite footballer ever. And I think Alba was a little bit rattled by it at that moment. Obviously, it didn't matter for him personally, but I think the Spaniards were taking that whole situation just a little bit more seriously than Italy. But at the end of that situation as well, what we have is a coin toss that eventually goes Italy's way, which had initially gone Spain's way. And Chiellini was
twice.
I'm pretty sure they did. I stand corrected.
Well, I was kind of distracted. I was on the phone a bit, but it definitely seemed like to go on a long time. And then there was a blah, 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 and the BBC commentary were like, oh, they've chosen ends, which means that they won't go first. And then Lineker was like, but you could see him going first. Chiellini first.
Yeah, but it did seem then at the end that Chiellini was like, we want that goal. And then something happened. Obviously, they had the hug. There was a bit of laughter, and then it went back to him. He's like, that goal, and it seemed that was an important piece for him. Of course, Victor is right, history and all that. So we're giving probably too much credit to that, but I just found that interesting as well. It was just really intriguing moment that kind of maybe shows the difference between this Italian team and every other team at this tournament on a mental level. Like, you cannot see Harry Kane indulging Chiellini in that sort of behaviour either in the final. It's nothing to do with Alba as such. I think Italy.
Well, what's the right course of action? To do the same? Is it like I think off it and go?
You have to laugh at it, but like, I mean, you're about to go into a penalty shootout that gets you a place in a big championships final. I think you can give a guy a free pass for maybe taking.
But Jordi Alba's won everything as well.
Yeah, he has, and he knows what it takes, and I don't think he's. I just haven't really seen that too often before. It was a bit of a wild card.
Okay, a good place to start with Paddy Agnew. Paddy, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, lads. I'm grand. How are you?
Owen thinks that there was the best mind games he's ever seen going on when the coin toss happens for the penalty shootout, and Chiellini is essentially the world's happiest man. Like, is he clowning around? Is that his character? Is it mind games? What's happening?
It's a bit of all of them, but I tell you one thing. I know Chiellini. I've spoken to him, and he's a very relaxed dude, and he's a guy who thinks outside the box a lot. He's not your average footballer. He looks like a big wardrobe of a defender, and he only thinks football. Well, it's not true. I mean, he's got a university degree. How many people in many players of the Euros have got a university degree?
That's very interesting. what I just thought it was, here is somebody who is at the very end of his career who has decided, I feel alive right now. How many times in your life do you get to say, right this moment, I am alive? And he's decided to embrace the moment, as opposed to Jordi Alba, who's like, oh, I've got the weight of Catalonia, I've got the weight of Castilian Spain, I'm captain in this team, I've got to go over there. My manager, I'm not really sure. Our best striker, he didn't pick him, played well, but do I trust any of these guys? Whereas Chiellini's like, whatever happens, it's about to happen, we can't stop it.
Yeah. I also think the atmosphere that Mancini's created within the Italian camp, the sense of we're all in this together, the sense of gruppo, as the Italians call it, is there too. I mean, they feel very sure where they are, and they're in a very good place, the Italians, with Mancini. I mean, I think an awful lot of credit to what's happened to Italy in the last month rests clearly with Mancini.
Chiellini maybe as well, Paddy, is feeling the sense of, I missed a bit of this tournament and I'm just happy to be back, because there was a sense maybe at the start that if Italy got knocked out early, that could be his tournament done and that could be his life as a tournament footballer over, except obviously that was never going to happen because Italy had been amazing and they were always going to go deep into this tournament. And maybe he's just appreciative of still being around and still having this opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. In his case, you know, he's 36. He's 108 caps. He's obviously at the end of his career. And he's had a number of injury problems. And there was a question mark at one point whether he'd even make the squad. So he's more than delighted, like any player at that point in his career, to be there and to be playing in the final of a tournament like this. It's fantastic.
Are you surprised by how well himself and Bonucci have done at this tournament?
I am a little bit, because both of them had physical problems. Like, you know, as I always joke before, I mean, between the two of them, they're, you know, 70 years old and 214 caps or something. But I mean, they've been around for a long time, and you'd 6 matches so far in the month, maybe, and now a 7th. You'd wonder if they'd lasted out, but they've lasted well. They've always been very good players, and they showed it again last night.
If there's one team that you reckon would be totally chilled out with Spain having a lot of the ball, all the possession, plenty of passes, you reckon it would be Italy? Like, was that the game plan, to sort of sit on the ropes a little bit and let Spain tire them out?
To some extent, it definitely was, because Mancini acknowledged before the game, he said, you know, this is, we're playing one of the best footballing sides in the world tomorrow. He said before the game, i.e. we're playing a side that like to knock it around, they knock it around. And he said they're even better at playing the possession game than us. We can't match them at that. We just have to try and hang on in there. And basically, if you look at the Italian papers this morning and you listen to the Italian commentators, the word that comes up most often is sofferenza, that we had to hang on in there and suffer. And that is, of course, traditionally one of the things that Italian teams do well. You know, I mean, it's not, you know, Gary Lineker's called himself into a big row because he referred to Chiesa, the man who scored Italy's goal during the match, as I think he called him Catenaccio o'clock. He said, you know, there you go, Italy playing their old Catenaccio game. To some extent, Gary was right there, and in that, you know, the better team on the night, better footballing team on the night was Spain, and that's the first time that's happened to Italy in this tournament. But they were able to ride it out, and they have enough class, and they do have a lot of class, to take their chances, both during the game and at the penalty shootout.
I think it's really interesting to see a team who is as unified as they are and who is so clear in what their identity is. It's obviously manifest in the defending, and a lot of it was last gasp, but that's what it's like in a tournament in many respects. But the goal where the keeper just gets it and realises that it's on, and 3 passes later, it's an absolutely beautiful finish. After the move breaks down as well, everybody's still switched on. Like, everybody in the Italian side needed to know exactly what their role was for that goal to work.
Absolutely. That is the type of football they've been playing for the last 18 months. They don't usually get as little, well, not little, they got quite a lot of possession last night, but they usually have like 70% of possession in games. They didn't have that against Spain. But yes, that was a move that sort of quick break on the counter. And that's what Gary Lineker was complaining about, saying, oh, that's how Italy playing counter-attacking football. I don't think he's entirely fair in the sense that, they've shown in this tournament so far that they're not the average Italian national team, and they can play some very good football. And they will do when they play England. At this point, if they play England, of course, you'd have to fancy the chances against England if they can, recover physically and mentally.
And of course, they have the extra day over whoever they're playing in the final as well, which at Chiellini's age, those extra 24 hours are going to matter a whole heap.
Yes, they are.
Paddy, you've covered Italy in tournaments for decades at this point. Did you think, starting out, that this was a team that could replicate the '06 team, for example?
Yes. If you look at all the things that I wrote in previous to this, I said, that when you come into this tournament, Italy are obviously in they might not be in the very front row of the grid if it's a Formula One race, but they're certainly on the second row if they manage to get through the shock of the first round, because a lot of the team hadn't played in a tournament before. Then they're going to be serious challengers because, the sort of, the winning run they put together coming into this tournament was not casual. There's a reason for that.
And the reason is Mancini, I think, is it?
The reason very much is Mancini, yeah. One of the things that's very clear about this Italian team is that there's a whole sense, like there is with every national team, but there's a whole sense of national pride. And the national pride here is obviously two factors that have come together. One, that you're recovering, is a redemption from the humiliation and shame of not qualifying for the Russian World Cup in 2018. And above all, even more, a whole sense of getting back into some sort of normal life after 18 months of COVID. Remembering that Italy was the first country in Europe to be hit by COVID and was hit very badly. Yeah,
so you can see how that outpouring is obviously, it's not unique, but certainly the footage that we saw of Italy at the very start was the most horrific. It was the epicenter for the first, certainly if you go back February, March 2020, that's where we were seeing the bodies piling up and the stories coming out.
Italy was caught unprepared. They were the first. They didn't know what we were dealing with and how to deal with it. So the Italians had a very difficult time. It was as simple as that.
Why is Mancini the perfect manager to redeem the team and then also to unite the country?
He's a perfect... a winning manager is a perfect manager in Italy, that's for sure, and he's a winning manager. But he is a guy who, as a player, was a wonderful player, absolutely sumptuous player, and he's, turned Italian football on its head because he's picked only players who can really knock the ball about, are comfortable on the ball, as I keep on repeating, like piedi buoni, have you good feet, as Italians say, and therefore they've played very attractive football, and that has really sparked something in public opinion, and people, who were very disillusioned after the failure to qualify for Russia, are very much behind Italy at this point. As you can imagine, it's a very happy Italy that woke up this morning.
And is that indicative of what football in Serie A has become over the last decade or so? Has Catenaccio effectively been renounced? While it's still part of the traditions and you can always, when you need to, batten down the hatches, but actually to be more expressive, to play on the half-turn, to fizz the ball into very tight spaces and to expect whoever gets it to be able to control it and keep possession?
To a certain extent, absolutely. You can go back to old ways, as Italy did a bit at times last night and against Austria too, but if you have to. But yes, Serie A reflects that a bit. If you look at a side like Atalanta, for example, who've qualified for the Champions League in recent seasons, they play a very intense 90-minute attacking game, which is most unusual for Italy. So, yes, I mean, we haven't seen anything like this in Italy since, in Italian football, since the legendary days in the 90s of Arrigo Sacchi's AC Milan, the Milan of the three Dutchmen, Rijkaard, Gullit and Van Basten. But, they were three Dutchmen, and that was one of the reasons why they were able to do that. This is an all-Italian version.
Why didn't the three Dutchmen inspire something more long-lasting and sustainable from an Italian standpoint then in the 90s?
That's a difficult question, but it's obviously the basic answer is that you've such a tradition here of go out there and defend first, get your defence in order, and then if you get a chance to score, and if you win 1-0, well, that's grand. That mentality had been around for so long. It took a long, long time, and people looked at the Milan thing and thought, well, God, they're fantastic, but I mean, what would they be like with 3 Dutchmen?
Yeah, they were kind of a unique case. Sorry, Ger.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you think of Juventus and Milan I had to just Google it quickly, 2003 Champions League final where it's 0-0 and it's 0-0 after 90 minutes, and everyone was like, oh, it was a masterclass of defending, and it was, but it wasn't particularly exciting. It wasn't particularly expressive. If Roberto Mancini had been in charge of either of those two teams, there would have been a winner in 90 minutes.
Well, yeah, I would like to think so, yeah. The one thing Mancini's done is he hasn't been frightened about playing players with, like he named, he's not here because he's injured, Zaniolo in the squad before he'd even played a Serie A game. He's a guy who, he knows his footballing onions. He doesn't need to be told who's a good player. He can, he's picked all the best players in Italian football. He's got them here and he's got them playing.
There's going to be an unavoidable reflection on 1966 of England win tonight. Is the same thing with regards to 1968 going to happen with Italy, or does the World Cup success in between, whatever it is, 60 years, actually change that?
To some extent, yes. I mean, when Italy think of international success, they think of 1982 and 2006. And the 68 European Championship wins a long, long way away in a lot of people's minds. But also what people will, one of the things about the Italian public opinion and Italian fans generally is that they sort of take it until they fail to qualify for Russia. They basically taking it as a right to be not just in the finals, but to in final tournaments, but to get to the at least the semi-finals, not the finals. This will be Italy's third European Championship final this century. I mean, they were there in the final in 2000 and 2012.
And I presume that just made last night extra sweet, the 2012 element, going into that final with such great hopes and getting smashed in that final to get one back on the Spanish, I presume. And it's not just 2012 either, Paddy.
No, the 2012 final, I'm sure, was in some people's head, all right. I mean, if we remember that tournament, the first game that Italy played in it was against Spain in the group stage, and they really had a very good game, probably should have won it. So when they got around to the final, they fancied themselves all right, but they were just physically knackered. They had a day less to prepare for the finals, and they had a couple of players injured. And, Spain were far too good for them that night. So it was definitely a moment of historical revenge.
In terms of Mancini, right? Obviously, the World Cup is in 18 months' time, and he's going to take this team to the World Cup, clearly. Is there a third act for him back in club management, or does he ride off into the sunset at that stage? What's the future for him?
Mancini's 56, so I mean, it's a bit early for him to be riding into the sunset. I would, well, we have to wait and see what happens on Sunday. If Italy win the European Championships, if they qualify for the World Cup, if they have a decent World Cup, I can see Mancini remaining in the position for quite some time, I mean, some Italian coaches, some Italian national team coaches, in particular the famous figure of Vittorio Pozzo in the 30s, remained in the job for a long, long time because he kept winning World Cups and Olympic medals and things. And I can see Mancini would stay if he keeps on winning. But it's very simple. I mean, as soon as you lose a game, evaluations and judgments tend to change.
Yeah, he's got a bit of credit in the bank not having lost a game. It's in 30 odd, whatever it is. It's an incredible run that they're on. One last thing I wanted to ask: if most managers in world football hired their mates, they'd be accused of jobs for the boys. But in this situation, he's surrounded himself with his former teammates, all of whom were legends of the game when we all fell in love with Serie A and Italian football, and it's worked for him perfectly. Is that just a case of the writers, or the victors write history, as Eoin was talking about earlier on, or is this actually the right thing to do, to tap into that wealth of knowledge from his former teammates?
Well, I think what he's doing is very, very simple. I mean, if you have a difficult job to do and you know you need some people to help you, you're going to pick people you can trust. So he picks Gianluca Vialli, he picks Fausto Salzana, Attilio Lombardi, 3 guys who played with him in the Sampdoria side that won the title in 1991. And he also picked Lele Oriali, one of Italy's great players who won the World Cup in 1992 and who was general manager at Inter when, as a coach when Mancini was winning his first titles, his first managerial success. So he picked players who came from his footballing success and his managerial success, and guys he can trust. So it creates a very tight, coherent managerial team. And you can see that at work. I mean, one of the things he's done, and it applied to some extent to Lippi in the 2016, but it really applies to this team, is that there are players who all, the atmosphere is good. They're all working for one another. They all know what they're meant to do, when to do it. And that's partly because of the managerial structure that Mancini set out. Yeah,
well, it's working for them as ever. It's been brilliant to watch. Paddy, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thank you.
Paddy Agnew giving us his thoughts there from Rome this morning. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. I mean, we kind of forget about Mancini's club career being a success, Eoin, when, like, I didn't win the Champions League with that City team. But his Man City team was much better crack to watch than the Pep Guardiola version, right?
You also haven't won the Champions League, let's not forget. So, yeah, I think that obviously, I think there's kind of a little bit of confirmation bias, maybe a little bit of revisionism going on, obviously, but that doesn't mean that necessarily it's wrong. I think maybe what happened was that when a manager leaves a job, we tend to say, okay, that person is a bit of a write-off, and we judge that person quite harshly. And I think that's what happened with Mancini. I think we're starting to realise now what actually his great power was to bring a team together and to have a style of football that suits the individuals that he has at his disposal. Like they have been a joy to watch over the last little while, and there's this real sense of family within this Italy team. For a country so huge, there's just a number of different connections. As you say, if things have gone badly, you'd be like, it's a little bit too close-knit. They need to cast the net a little bit wider when it comes to the backroom team or whatever it may be. Like, even you look at Chiesa really coming into form as the tournament's gone on. Like, Mancini played with his father at Sampdoria, and there's all these little threads that you can pick up throughout the squad and in the backroom team, obviously. That makes this kind of like a bit of a family insofar as it can be for a big nation competing at a European Championships. And it's nothing to do with England, but if it is an England-Italy final, I think you would just love to see Italy win it. Now, if it's Denmark, there's obviously the whole Christian Eriksen element, which would make you want them to see, you'd love to see them win it. But Italy, I think they've just been a really likeable team to watch, and we've completely forgiven them for the end of the Belgium game. If like any other team, we'd be like, that's disgraceful, that's disgusting. I'll never support that team with them writhing around on the ground in pain. Whereas we've completely labelled that as cheekiness rather than anything more sinister than that. And I think that probably sums up the way people view this Italian team.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the 20,000 word deep dive on Mancini's managerial career and how he goes from being sacked by City to winning the Euros on Sunday. Yeah, and like it is a great deep dive that will be, but I do think that there will be another 20,000 words to be written after this as well when they go into the World Cup next year, because reading the preview pieces before the tournament, there was definitely a sense in Italy that coming out of this tournament intact is kind of what they wanted, and to show green shoots, to show signs of hope was what was important, and then to go and try and win the next World Cup would have been important. But really, maybe that was a false analysis, given maybe Bonucci and Chiellini in particular, and them maybe not being what they are now in 18 months. And that is a big maybe. Maybe they will be in a great place then as well. I guess that analysis before the tournament was based on some of the younger players in different areas of the team and how they can all step up over the next little while. And getting this tournament experience, having not made the World Cup in 2018, was always going to be really important. But as it turns out, that relentless tournament experience isn't overly important. Players can actually feel their way into a tournament, and they're all obviously professional footballers who've played in high pressure scenarios before. And Italy have proven that you don't necessarily need to be in the last tournament.
Whereas with England, on the other hand, the analysis is kind of, oh, they've learned from 2018, and that's the thing that's really driving them on in this year's tournament. So they're coming at this from two very different vantage points, if that is the final. But I think we've maintained enough this morning that tonight is going to be a cracker as well.
Yeah, Noel says, for me, the first penalty taker was to blame as he had chances to put pressure on Italy. Also, Spain had a better chance of beating England. Gutted. Shifty Lad says, any relation of yours own with the Kerry jersey in the Italian end? Couldn't be Italian. He was as red as an Irishman could be. Now, you tweeted about this, and then, subsequently, it was, I think, the Dublin Airport Twitter account that pointed out there wasn't one Kerry jersey, there were two Kerry jerseys. There were twins. Did you notice that?
I did notice that, one with a retro Kerry jersey, one with the brand new Kerry jersey, and
they looked like they were the spit of each other.
Yeah, they did. I mean, like all Irish people look like each other.
Unless that's it, you know. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to be racist against my own kind here,
but it certainly sounds like that's what you're doing. It's disgusting. And then there was also the man wearing the classic Opal Ireland jersey as well. So it was just like we were at home at Augusta National. Really, that's kind of what it felt like.
Fair play to them, because they're the talk of Irish Twitter anyway.
It's going to be interesting actually if England win tonight, because what you'll have is a load of Italian fans in the ground who are living in England and maybe aren't the ultras, so to speak, of Italian football, or like lads in Kerry jerseys, versus the ultras of England. It'll be two very different kinds of people who support their team involved. I'm not sure, unless the quarantine rules are changing for the final, and that Italian people can actually fly over from Italy in time to actually get to the game. But there was definitely kind of a tourist element to the crowd last night, I felt. Or maybe the cameraman was just picking out the wackiest things, which tends to happen.
That's what we would have done at the start of COVID, was let all the Italians who had tickets come over anyway, because sure, look, it'd be a shame to ruin the tickets. Brian says, lads, what a difference a year makes. Last time I heard Paddy Agnew, he was telling the country in very bleak, apocalyptic detail what was going on as Italy was gripped by a new, terrifying virus. It's true, it's been a wild ride of 18 months. Ultimately, it's fate that Denmark win because of Christian Eriksen. It's fate that England win because it's at home. But if the Italians win, you know, that would actually be one of those things that I think the rest of the world will look at and go, oh yeah, Jesus, they were really devastated by that at the start. Remember we were all watching those videos and absolutely terrified about what was going on. So if they get a moment of national joy, I'm not sure anybody is going to be good than that. OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. It's 17 minutes past 8. We're going to take a quick break, talking with Lloyd-Hughes about the situation in England and just how buck-mental they're getting after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Football Pod with Paddy and Andy, our new weekly Gaelic football show with Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran.
They're up getting photos for the launch of some product, and I'm in there like I have a head like 50 pence and walking in.
Never do a gig with it's never going to end well.
Who walks in? It was like, you know, them slow-mos when the doors open and this Greek god just walks through the door, and I'm like...
Tom Cruise.
Like pasty white, head on me like a size 6, and it's just joy walks through. So that was a demoralising day. But
download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the GAA podcast feed now.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Auto Mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Auto Mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Right, it is 18 minutes past 8. Let's take a quick look at the papers. We can start with OTBSports.com. Italy romance footballing world with final appearance after hellish year. It's our headline on last night with some video for you there. England can dominate for years like Germany and Spain, says Steve McLaren. I mean, I think he's right to say that because the team is absolutely sensational. However, the Spanish team last night, with Paddy at the heartbeat of it. Remember, he's 18 and that forward line is almost as young as England. Steve McLaren on OTB, the three things that made Alex Ferguson the best. Lions game this weekend postponed, Box game versus Georgia in doubt. So the Lions game this weekend has been postponed as in they're not playing the team they were supposed to play, but there is a possibility of a replacement fixture at the same time, and we'll know more details of that a little bit later around lunchtime. And the story of the UEFA European Championships, Holland are nearly men no more. They're those beautiful little bits that Team OTB have been producing over the course of the tournament. Get into some of that goodness. I'm just going to start with the English papers, why wouldn't I? The Telegraph this morning, ready to roar. That's the end of a sentence that says, you may have a sense of dread and it will be nervy, but this night is for heroes, and England say they are ready to roar. Maybe they are, and they're getting all these photographs with them lads going mad. And like, maybe that's exactly what they should be, because it doesn't seem like it's the burden of 66 and 3 lines and pop songs and everybody going crazy.
This is Chiellini laughing at Jordi Alba. That is them channeling that same energy, and I think it's all good.
Also inside the Telegraph, England's World Cup hero is coming home. Sir Geoff Hurst has been booked by the BBC to be on the sideline for the game on Sunday, not the game tonight. He's not going to the semi, he's only showing up for the final. The Examiner, Mancini's marvels, that's the celebration after the goal as opposed to the penalty shootout. In with a shout, excitable Pickford has history in his sights. Jordan Pickford, poor Jordan Pickford. The Daily Mirror, Azzurri clinched spot in final, and they've got spot in yellow, so you know that there were spot kicks, in case you weren't sure about it. Bale has his Real plan for the future. The story came out yesterday that Gareth Bale is going to play this season and retire and then go to the World Cup later that year.
What a life. What a life that man will lead. And that's the footballer's life everybody wants.
He's done all right for himself. I mean, the Star home wrecker. And this is a picture of Kasper Schmeichel. Kasper Schmeichel last night taunted England over their "It's coming home" slogan by saying, has it ever been home?
Well, like, on a point of information, I know we can speak to Flo Lloyd-Hughes in a moment, but like, did football not technically come home in '96? I mean, the tournament was at home. And was that the whole point of the song, rather than the actual winning of the trophy? Maybe I'm wrong. Like, it's obviously been reappropriated for winning the World Cup or winning the Euros now, but was the initial point of it coming home not the fact that they'd actually secured the hosting rights to a tournament? So, yes, Kasper, I would say it did come home.
Yeah, and have they ever won it? 1966, was that not the World Cup? To be honest, I haven't given any thought to what it would mean to stop England more than what it would do for Denmark. Kasper Schmeichel not having any of it, but also being quite pedantic, which, you know, in fairness, would be in keeping with how his dad would have communicated, certainly. He didn't lick it off a stone anyway. Right, it is 22 minutes past 8. I'm delighted to say Flo Lloyd-Hughes is with us. Good morning to you. How are you, Flo?
Morning, guys. All right. A little bit croaky from being at Wembley last night, but not too bad, yeah.
And were you cheering on the Azzurri?
I was, yeah. I've really enjoyed watching them during the Euros, and although I think, you know, if England were to win tonight and get through to the final, Italy would be a harder team to face. I thought Spain were really good last night. So I was basically just cheering on it getting to a penalty shootout. So I'm happy because I got my way in that respect.
Yeah, what a penalty shootout. So you were at Wembley. What was because the atmosphere looked absolutely brilliant. I mean, as fans starved of any proper sporting activity with fans in stadiums, this last month has been a reminder of why we fell in love with sport in the first place. But what was it like to be there?
Oh, it was amazing. And I mean, I think not to be too big-headed about London as a city, but I think in a situation where there are travel restrictions, I think probably the best place for these games to be is at Wembley, because London is such a multicultural city, and Mancini was complaining before the match about how unfair it was because there's going to be travel restrictions, so there wouldn't be Italian fans there. And there were tons of them because there's loads of Italians that live in London, and same with the Spanish fans. There were loads of Spanish fans. So the atmosphere felt like it was, I don't know, in Rome or in Barcelona, because they were just so loud and just brought so much energy. So I thought it was brilliant, and I think with everything that's going on, I think having the games at Wembley is kind of a perfect solution, because we've got so many Europeans here.
Sorry, go on.
Well, we were just saying there earlier on, Flo, that it did seem on TV like a bit more of a carnival atmosphere than you're used to from a semi-final. That maybe you lose that with fans flying over, the season ticket holders, as it were, that would actually be there. Whereas there was not a casualness about the fans last night, but there was certainly more positivity or more happiness, certainly on the evidence of TV. Was it like that in the ground?
No, I think in the ground it felt like more, you know, one half Italy, one half Spain. So obviously they had their big groups behind the goals, and in the first half, whenever Spain got the ball, the Italian fans would just boo and whistle to try and put them off, and then vice versa when the Italians had the ball.
That was great.
It felt like, for me, like a rivalry fixture. And then you had, I mean, there were some local, like obviously England fans who bought tickets because they just wanted to get to a game. So there was kind of It's Coming Home popping up occasionally before being drowned out by some boos from the Italian fans. But it just felt good. Like you said, it just felt amazing to have fans back.
Yeah, I thought the booing was brilliant because we keep talking about this. The fake crowd noise that they've been piping into the TV, there's never any booing, there's never any negativity, there's never any chants about the referee and whatever. Like, you can't fake that. You actually need the negativity because that's what makes the rivalry and that's what makes the game and that's what ratchets up the pressure.
Yeah, and I think it made it feel like a semi-final. You know, when that game that Denmark played against Czech Republic in Baku, that didn't feel like the quarter-final of a European Championship. There were, 1,000 Danish fans there or something, a couple of hundred Czech Republic fans, zero atmosphere, the pitch was terrible. And it just felt a bit sad that these players were playing in some of the biggest games of their careers in front of nobody. And last night, it felt like a proper high-stakes, tense, high-pressure occasion, and that's just what you want, really, in these big tournaments.
Yeah, good for the England fans to be distracted by the fact that there was another game last night as opposed to constantly sitting there worrying, anxious about the potential outcome of this semi-final. Or certainly, judging from the papers today, it doesn't seem like there's a semi-final tonight at all. England seem to be already planning for Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, the arrogance could come to bite England a little bit. I mean, this is certainly the best chance they've ever had in a very long time to get to a major final and potentially win a trophy. I mean, that game a couple of years ago against Croatia was obviously another big opportunity, but I think Croatia were the better team then and deserved to get to the final. But this is a huge, huge opportunity. And I think really England are better than Denmark, but Denmark have really grown into this tournament. They look better with every game, and they've got this huge emotional experience that can, have a massive impact and can carry you a long way.
What happens if England lose tonight? Is that written off as a bad tournament?
No, because I think the win against Germany was huge. It was huge psychologically for the fans. It was huge for the players because that run to the semi-final in the World Cup, I think Southgate always had hanging over him that they didn't really have to beat many good teams. The shootout win against Colombia was massive, but apart from that, it felt like they weren't troubled that much. Whereas in this tournament, beating Germany has kind of proven to a lot of, I think, other big national teams, fans and the media that Southgate does mean business as a coach, and he will stay on and lead England, hopefully, into more success. So although it'll be a huge disappointment because of the fact that it is such a big opportunity, I think that win against Germany will kind of carry a lot of weight and will keep Southgate's kind of stock fairly high for a while.
It feels as well like this is a group where he's maturing as a manager, they're maturing in terms of age. Like, some of these players are obviously at the peak in terms of their age, but that generation who are coming through, for whom this is their first tournament, like they're excited. Grealish can't contain himself when he's talking about it, and it's like there's a boyish charm to that. But I'm sure it must be an incredible time to be an England fan when you're looking at what the future might hold.
Yeah, and you know what? As England fans, we've had this golden generation before. We've had our hopes lifted before. I mean, when Sven-Göran Eriksson was in charge, the calibre of some of those players that went to the 2002 World Cup, 2004 Euros, I mean, the way Wayne Rooney lit up the 2004 Euros, but there's a brilliant piece by Ollie Kay in The Athletic, which really focuses on the culture of England and how that's dramatically changed with kind of purpose and specific kind of professionals that they've brought in to really transform the way England is as a team across the men's and women's side. And I think that's kind of the missing piece of the puzzle, because England have always had talented players. They've always had talented players because the FA spend loads on football programmes in England. We obviously have the Premier League, which is really successful, and it's the nation's game, both for boys and girls, men and women. So it's never been an issue about talent, really. It's been an issue about mindset and culture. And I think that's why this generation is so different, because they finally perfected that. And also when you were talking about, is it going to be a disappointment? The reality is this tournament is kind of rigged for England to win. Let's be honest. They played all their group games at Wembley. They only had to play one of their knockout games away from Wembley. They got the semi-final and potentially the final at Wembley. If they don't win it now in front of home fans, you almost feel like, are they ever going to do it? Because this is basically a home tournament for England. So they've really got to seize the moment and seize the opportunity. And I know they want to. It's not a case of if they don't do it, if they didn't want it. Anything can happen, and Denmark are still a good team.
How many changes would you make to the team that started against Ukraine?
The team against Ukraine, I probably would make a couple of changes. I mean, I think when you look at a lot of the build-up to this game, it looks like probably playing a 3-4-3 is probably the best option for Southgate. And it looks like he might go for the same team that played against Germany, but move Saka out and bring Mason Mount in. So I think Jadon Sancho will probably drop out the side. I thought he was okay against the Ukraine, but I think Southgate's not going to want to take too many risks. And we've seen Denmark be able to exploit with their 4-3-3. So I think he's going to want to try and match up with them across the pitch. But, I mean, Southgate's proven a lot of journalists wrong this entire tournament when they've tried to guess what he's going to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does something completely different.
Yeah. That has been certainly the hallmark of his team selection all the way through up to this point. I don't know. I haven't seen a consensus leaked team. We were talking about this before we came on. Before all of the games up to this point, there has been that various people have got the team. That doesn't seem to be the case at this point.
Yeah, it was funny that, I mean, the Germany team got leaked really early at like 8 o'clock in the morning, the day of the game, which I thought was a bit worrying because you are also giving your opposition like 12 hours to potentially change things if they've seen it as well. I mean, they probably knew what they were doing the whole time. But yeah, it hasn't happened yet as of kind of 8:30 now. But I think Southgate isn't worried about that. I mean, he seems to be fairly confident that even if the team is to be leaked, he's still got the right options. And you mentioned Jack Grealish. I mean, what England have on the bench to bring on is so good that I think if things don't quite go their way in the first half, I think Southgate has shown now that he's better at using substitutes than he once was, and he will call on people like Jack Grealish to just go on and change the game.
The one caveat to all this is I'm not a huge believer in the FIFA World Rankings, but Denmark are ranked 10th, and I was trying to find where Croatia were ranked before the World Cup in 2016. They were as low as 27th in April in the year of 2016, and obviously they finished the year much higher at about 14th. So, like, FIFA would seem to think Denmark are going to give you a tougher game than what they thought Croatia were going to give England. That's the one kind of thing that's nagging away here at me, is that, like, okay, so they don't have Christian Eriksen playing, but they've got something far more important than him physically on the pitch. They've got his spirit. They certainly feel like they're a team of destiny.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if they were to go on and win this tournament, it'd be the most incredible movie. You know, you couldn't write that. But, I mean, in kind of, like you said, with the Coca-Cola rankings, I mean, I wouldn't pay much attention to them, considering Belgium have been #1 for a very long time now and haven't been able to get very far in tournaments as of yet. So, yeah, I think all in all, they're not a team that should be underestimated. I think they've shown how they've got a lot better going forward than they were at the start of this tournament. And I think it's not just the emotion that England should be fearful of. I think they are a quality side. So certainly I think just ignore the rankings and look at how a team have performed throughout a tournament.
What's your take on how England will fare if they do go 1-0 down?
It's an interesting question. Obviously, they haven't conceded any goals this tournament, and it's the one thing that they haven't had to think about yet. And they had a similar issue at the World Cup where they didn't concede a lot of goals, didn't have to fight back from going a goal down really at all, apart from in the group stages against Belgium where they made a ton of changes. So it wasn't really a game that counted for much. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest fear for England fans is Jordan Pickford. You mentioned him earlier. Highly emotional guy, wears his heart on his sleeve, tremendous shot stopper, but we all know he can be quite erratic. Sometimes he can let his head get the better of him. And he hasn't felt what it's like to concede a goal yet in this tournament. And it'll be really interesting if England do go behind early, how that impacts him, how that impacts Harry Maguire, how that impacts the whole defence, who have clean sheets throughout this competition. They're going to have to finally adjust to being the team fighting to get back into it for once.
Does it change how Southgate would then approach things? Like, do you subscribe to the idea that it has been defence first, this campaign?
Yeah, certainly. He's been very kind of strong on the fact that he has prioritised defence, and I think Pickford and his defenders have been consistent with that in the way that they've talked to the media. It's always been about, if we get a clean sheet, we know we're putting ourselves in the best position to win games and progress. So I think that the mentality has always been kind of defend our goal first, and then an opportunity will drop to our attackers, and we know that they're good enough to put it away. So certainly he's gone into this knowing that he needs to prioritise how England are defensively, because they've shown those weaknesses before.
What has been your favourite moment of Euros football paraphernalia, call it what you will? We were raiding your Twitter account this morning, and we're going to put up a couple of pictures. It's in glorious pizza form. It's coming home spelled out with, I think, pepperoni on a margarita, and it's an work of art. And the Harry Kane one is just absolutely sensational. 9 separate pieces of cheese carved in the shape of an England shirt, with the 9 number on Harry Kane's chest, and the Cross of St. George. I think that's just in passata. Some beautiful... it looks like a higher quality cheese they've used for the jersey as well. And then Kane is spelled out again in glorious meat product.
Is this every Asda in the UK at the moment, the deli section?
I mean, I haven't certainly seen it in the local shops around me, but it does seem particularly tragic, doesn't it?
Or glorious, I can't decide. Glorious football kitsch.
However people want to show their fandom is, is up to them. But yeah, there's some funny things that shops certainly get involved with. I mean, I did appreciate at Wembley last night an Italian fan who had this sign, and he'd written "It's coming home," but he'd crossed out the H and put an R, so it said "It's coming Rome." I thought that was pretty good. So there's been some good bits and pieces, some good signs, some good fans. But yeah, I mean, like you said, having the fans back, I just think it's been a wonderful showcase for football, really. I mean, the matches we've been able to enjoy last night, France, Switzerland, a very good one. Italy, Belgium was one of my favourite games as well. I think we've been starved of something like this for so long. It just feels so good to have really good football back.
Do you expect them to boo the knee tonight?
No, I don't. I think England fans have shown in the last couple of weeks, certainly, that there's more of them that support that than don't. And although there might be, a couple of boos around Wembley, it's definitely drowned out by the cheers. And I actually think there was a stronger reaction to Ukraine not joining and taking the knee on Saturday than the players doing it themselves. And I think people love these players, and these players understand the power that they have, and I think the impact is being shown the way I think the narrative has changed. And it might be just because I'm in my own little Twitter, vacuum, but I do truly think that people are starting to see, what these players are passionate about and respecting that, and thinking, maybe I should support that as well.
That's a remarkable thing, isn't it? Because if you compare the volume of the boos at the Riverside in any of the pre-season friendlies or the pre-tournament friendlies to what we're hearing now, there has been an appreciable difference. And I certainly would have been of the opinion that certain views are entrenched and you're not going to change anybody's mind. But it sort of seems that even on a small level, that is exactly what's happened.
Yeah, totally. And I also think, some of it is about where the games are. Like, London is certainly a more liberal city than Middlesbrough, and that's going to have an impact as well. There was also more fans at Wembley, and there weren't as many in Middlesbrough, so people booing at the Riverside is going to sound a lot louder than people booing at Wembley because there were more cheers at Wembley. So I think there's a couple of different factors, but I think some of the biggest legacy for Southgate and for a lot of people up to kind of this tournament has always been the man he is and what he's passionate about, how he's influenced the nation and influenced the players that he works with. And this kind of coaching quality has only really come in the last kind of couple of months. But I think his legacy will really be how he's impacted football and kind of the wider country in terms of diversity, inclusion, and what he's passionate about. And I think some fans have been changed by that. And that is really important. Even if you just impact a couple of people's lives, you're changing society in that respect.
I really hope you're right. Flo, give us a prediction.
Oh, it's tough. I don't think England can realistically go all this way still without not conceding a goal. So I think they might concede a goal tonight, but I do think they're going to win. I think it's going to be 2-1 England.
In normal time, or is this a nail-biter, extra time?
I think in 90, or I hope in 90, just for my kind of sanity's sake.
Well, listen, enjoy the game. I mean, when you think about where we've come from to where we are tonight, to be able to go to Wembley and for you to be able to watch your country against Denmark is a fairly remarkable turnaround. So enjoy. Thanks a million for talking to us this morning.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
That's Flo Lloyd-Hughes there. You can follow her at FLOYD tweet on Twitter as well. And of course, I'm sure I've been hearing her on various podcasts across the course of the last month. It is 8:39 this morning. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. I'm also very interested in reading about all those pieces about what the makeup of this England team means for the geopolitics of England. Because, you know, there's no way that Brexiteers can look at that team and go, yeah, I see myself in that. That's a team that represents me.
And yeah, on the flip side of that then is there's no way the Brexiteers aren't going to hop on this
Steal it.
as theirs and as a real mark for Brexit. So yeah, that is a very interesting conversation. That's already happening, in fairness, as to who owns this team, and maybe even the conversation
the players
that is kind of like is kind of troublesome anyway.
Yeah, well, I think you have to have those conversations after what England has inflicted on itself with the Brexit vote and the politics that they've embraced over the last decade. It's going to be very interesting to see how this team shapes politics into the future and relationships. Like inside England, the racial politics of England is very fractured when you look at it from this part of the world, and then you go there and everything seems actually totally fine on a day-to-day basis. But then you see the fault lines, you're like, hang on a second, they are very exposed. And so the booing of the knee and it being drowned out, I don't think that people, I don't know. I'd be very interested to see if people have changed their mind because of the actions of the football team, because if they have, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But maybe what's happened is just that more people are realising that they have to speak out.
Yeah.
And even in itself, that is a radical moment where people realise that they've got to be involved. You can't just be a passerby here. We are all implicated in everything that's happening. And if you choose not to be involved, well, that's a distinctive choice. And that's really abdicating responsibility. So
it kind of comes back to the same theme that has been coming up quite a bit over the last 12 months, which is there's a difference between being not racist and being anti-racist, and maybe there's a need that England fans feel at the moment to support these guys in what they're doing, and as you said, to cheer a little bit louder. But it is going to be, if they do win this tournament, there will be a number of fascinating, probably reaches that are made as well. Like, I mean, if you go back to the '98 World Cup and France and the way that was supposed to be a symbol of a new France and divisions being brought down and all that didn't necessarily manifest itself in reality as the years went by in the suburbs of Paris, for example. So, yeah, it will be fascinating. It's already fascinating because this has been, I think, already a pretty successful tournament for England.
Yeah, 8:42 this morning here on OTB AM. As ever, we'd love to hear from you, get involved in the conversation. You can leave a comment in the YouTube stream, or you can WhatsApp us on 0879 180 180. John Duggan is with us this morning. John, good morning to you. How are you?
Good, you're on yourselves.
We're going to wait. We're going to make you wait to take your lap of honour. Instead, we're going to talk about the news first, and then you can, like, I don't know if you're a Tardelli celebrator or if you're like a top off swirling it round, or I don't know how, maybe you're just an Alan Shearer. I'm not sure. You can give us a couple of minutes to decide. Tell us about the news first, and then
no problem, lads. Italy into the Euro final. That Jorginho penalty was a thing of beauty last night, wasn't it? Morata never looked like he would score in that penalty shootout, even though he did get the equaliser against Italy in normal time. A 1-1 draw after 120 minutes. Chiesa, I thought, was fantastic last night. And Italy into the final. Amazing after they didn't qualify for the World Cup, but unbeaten now in 33. And it's all about England, Denmark, as you say. 8 o'clock this evening at Wembley. Everybody will be watching it. And Harry Kane has been speaking about the pressure.
It's part and parcel of major tournament football. Obviously, a lot of us have been dealing with it at club level as well. And Champions League finals, semi-finals, cup finals. So, the squad's obviously probably more experience than what it was back in 2018. So it's a chance for us to go out there and prove it. We can obviously talk as much as we want, but the bottom line is we've got to go out there and perform.
Will England go 4-2-3-1? They probably will. They probably should against Denmark. But the line of the day yesterday was Kasper Schmeichel, who gave a very mic-dropping, burning response when asked if the Danes wanted to stop football coming home.
What would it mean to you guys to stop it coming home tomorrow night?
Has it ever been home? I don't know. Have you ever won it?
1966 it was home.
Well, was that not the World Cup?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying, but the whole thing about a national tournament finally coming home, finally the actual success this country craves. What would it mean to you to stop that coming home?
To be honest, I haven't given any thought to what it would mean to stop England more than what it would do for Denmark.
In fairness, hearing the audio, that's a much better answer.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
we were slacking him off about 5 minutes ago because it doesn't read as good as it actually sounds. Good man, Casper.
Do you want England to win, lads?
I mean, I'm very torn. I've kind of predicted England to win on various places and in most conversations over the last while. So, you want to stick by the thing that you predicted. And part of that was an emotional hedge. But at the same time, if they lose, I don't know if you read the Telegraph this morning, but Sir Geoff Hurst has been booked to do sideline analysis on Sunday, right? They've booked him. Now, I know they need to make preparations because he's an old man. You need to make sure everything's fine and all that kind of stuff. And there's accreditation and all that kind of stuff. But telling everybody that you've done it before the semi-final doesn't make any sense to me at all. They're also saying that they want him to hand over the trophy to Harry Kane. They haven't even won the semi-final and they're already handing out the trophy for the final. It's like, okay, what you want and what you get are not the same things. And so do I want that? Do I want the Telegraph to lose? Yes, I do. But I want Jack Grealish to win, and I want Raheem Sterling to win and shove it down the throats of the Sun and the Mail and all those other papers who have waged a campaign against him for such a long period of time. And yet, if he wins, they'll also claim victory. So what do you do?
Will, yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
You can only hope for English defeat, I think, because it is undeniably funny whenever they lose, and it's nothing to do with it being England. It's to do with it being the most overhyped sports team in the world, and they will still be the most overhyped sports team in the world even if they win the Euros and they win the World Cup next year. It will still be a level of overhype that we've never seen before, and that for me is why, John, the answer is always it would be funny to see them lose.
Tonight or in the final?
Tonight, I think. Tonight would be funnier than the final, because the final can be annexed as a victory for England regardless of the result.
Now, if they lose the final, I think it'd be very painful for them.
But tonight would be funnier.
My concern is that I fear for the mental health of whoever is the scapegoat, because obviously there's no way that they're losing without there being a scapegoat. Now, maybe it's the referee, who knows?
No, Southgate, I'd say, stands a good chance of being scapegoated.
I don't think so. I think they've been puffing up Southgate as the new Winston Churchill.
A nice fat scapegoat. I mean, a nice puffed up scapegoat is what they want.
No, Southgate can't be the scapegoat after Germany and Ukraine. I think Southgate's got a World Cup campaign and is positive about Southgate, and he's the CEO. He's got the humility. They're liked. Actually, I don't think there's going to be a scapegoat.
So you think they're going to win?
But I think England will win. But if it is, it'd be funny if it was Declan Rice. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, potentially, I can see his tournament has been grand. It hasn't been so sensational that there's no way anybody's going to go. And also, there's enough of the media who are London-based, who are not West Ham fans, or who are fans of teams that would like to have Declan Rice, that they'll put pressure on. So I can see Declan Rice being, if I was to power rank my potential scapegoats, number one is Jordan Pickford. Like, the biggest risk of anybody in the England team being a scapegoat for the whole thing coming off the rails is Jordan Pickford, because his form has not been, his shot stopping has been good, but there's been absolute moments of madness in the tournament from him so far. So I would definitely, he is there. And then after that, you can take your pick from any of the defenders, really. Like, there's a possibility Harry Maguire's fitness is not quite where we all think it is, and his performances have been good. You know, everybody's been like, oh, he's been sensational, but has he been truly as good as everybody is saying, or are they kind of, you know, saying, I don't know. So I think there's potential for that, and then you take your pick after that. But Declan Rice, hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I've got this weird feeling that Maguire's going to score tonight. But anyway, what we'd probably want if it goes to penalties is a performance that Emi Martinez put in for Argentina last night in the Copa America. Saved 3 penalties against Colombia in the shootout. They're going to play Brazil. It's so sad that the Maracanã will not have a full house for Brazil against Argentina on Saturday in the Copa America final. Messi's never won it, as we know. Just to let you know about other sports news before we get on to the golf. The Lions against the Sharks in their latest tour game from 6 o'clock this evening. The whole match live on OTB Sports Radio. Bundyaki starts, but more importantly, Ian Henderson captains the team. On the bench, Conor Murray, the tour captain, Tyke Furlong, Tyke Byrne, Jack Conan as well. The under-20s against Italy in the Six Nations in Cardiff from 2 o'clock. Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic in quarterfinal action at Wimbledon today. Federer up against Hubert Hurkacz. Djokovic taking on Martin Fucsovics. Elsewhere, Matteo Berrettini taking on Felix Auger-Aliassime, and Karen Khachanov plays Denis Shapovalov in Wimbledon today. Kildare, great story, knocking Wexford out of the Leinster Under-20 Championship in hurling last night. 16 points to 112. Liam Dempsey scoring 14 points for the Lily-Whites. They were eventually reduced to 13 men. I don't know if you were lighting bonfires, Ger, last night in Kildare, but their manager, Pat English, who also went to the stands, spoke to South East Radio after the game.
We decided who the free man was going to be. They also worked a sweeper, which probably suited us. We just keep working the ball. You decide where the ball is going to go, not your opposition, and that's what the lads do. They stuck with the process, and they showed serious heart, serious. What's the word? I don't know. You guys have better words than me. You can put in whatever you want there.
Cojones, Pat.
Cojones. Yeah.
But it is a massive advantage having a free taker. Like
yes, he kept the scoreboard ticking over, and that's his job. And we have a second and third free taker as well, which probably keeps him under pressure and keeps him level. But it was a serious performance by 15, then by 14, then by 13, and we came out with it. Yes, he kept the scoreboard ticking over when we really needed some really hard frees. Well done to him, but somebody has to get fouled. So, look, there's 15 brilliant winners out there. We used 21 people there today. Every one of them done their bit.
Your players looked well conditioned. No, they certainly look stronger, more powerful than Wexford. They all up to the age?
No, there's only 5 of the age of this band, but that doesn't matter. They're all willing to put their body on the line for Kildare hurling, for their families, for their friends, and that's what matters. These guys, they even done their social responsibility. They went off and raised money for Bardstown during the year, and that showed that there was something in them. When I saw that, they went off and raised something like 20 odd grand there during the year, running from Mellon to Mizzen or whatever and back to Newbridge. That shows that they're not just in it for whatever they can get out of it. They gave, and they kept on giving. Credit to them.
Great story.
Yeah, like really remarkable, and fingers crossed it is the start of another county hopefully joining the top tier, because like we could do with a bit of excitement, a few new faces in hurling. Right, John, time for a lap of honour. Tell us, who did you tip last week?
Lucas Herbert was my second tip of the Irish Open. I thought Rory would win. I did say that pretty clearly, but Lucas Herbert was a clear second tip, 4 each way, 33-1, won by 3 shots.
Never in doubt, a little bit.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was pretty comfortable in the end. He just scrambled a bit in the final round, lads. But yeah, we also had Wacken Neiman, who was lost in a playoff in Detroit. So we had Seamus Power, who was tied for 8th. So the profit now is 10% for the year, 10.7%. It's been a long slog. And you asked me about celebrations. The whole thing about this is finishing December in profit. If I'm in profit for the year, that's when the champagne will be corked and we'll go run around the garden and that kind of thing. I do remember at Cheltenham, because Cheltenham is such a pressurised thing. Luckily, in the last 5 years, I've tipped the Gold Cup winner twice, and I've watched it in the press room. There's a gallery outside the press room just in front of the winning post, and I've absolutely lost it the both times they've won, and I've started screaming and shouting, and I ran out the press room both times. I ran down the whole concourse of Cheltenham. So I do go mad when really big things happen, and you should in life.
Look, you've got to celebrate the victories. That's the whole point about it. 33-1 winner, back in profit. That's a fairly sensational achievement. But here's the thing, you've been hitting the post 5 out of the last 6 weeks or so. There have been golfers who were like leading and then would fall away, or who would just miss. So whatever your strategy is, it has been working.
It has been, I would like to think. I think there's 2 things. There's the predictions, and then there's the money you put on. The staking. So I went for the US Open, the John Ram. I should have tipped him to win, but like even February, March, I was unlucky a couple of times, and there's been then weeks when I've been really off and not hitting it at all. But you have to keep the faith and keep the head down, and the only thing that will work is actually putting in the work and putting in the graft. I remember actually Paddy Power told me once is that he thinks a load of punters. You have to work very, very hard, and the harder you work, as Gary Player said, the luckier you become. So we'll keep it going.
I also thought that it was it's very difficult to move from the PGA Tour to the European Tour. To have your winner on the European Tour was pretty remarkable.
Oh, thanks, man. But luckily, one of the key things, there's a few things. There's track form, course form. Does a player like the look of a course? There is recent form, which is very, very important. Is a player in good form? But there's also another couple of things. There's bottle, which Lucas Herbert had because he won the Dubai Desert Classic last year. So he'd shown the resilience to win a tournament. And the other thing is class. So is somebody coming down in grade? If you look at a horse at the top at a handicap in a big race against much weaker horses, sometimes the class acts can win. And that's why the Rams, the Justin Thomases can come out and win out of the blue because they've got the class. And there's a lot of journeymen in golf. And in that tournament last week at the Irish Open, you could have ruled out probably 100 of them, because you're talking about class acts at the top of the field. And you could even see in the final round, there was players there that choked because they're in 300, 400 and 500 of the rankings. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to them, but it's very hard to see them winning the thing. You have to go with class acts in golf. That's why it's rare. Even like Stuart Sink won a major about 10 years ago. He was a class act. He was 500 to 1 at the start of the year at the Safeway Open. But because he's got the class, he still has a chance. Sergio Garcia's got a chance next week because he's got class, but a lot of players don't have, they're in that middle rank, and it's very hard to jump up to the next rank.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are you looking at this week?
Okay, I forget about the Scottish Open because I think it's very hard. I think players are tuning up for next week's Open Championship. We can't wait for that preview. Royal St. George and Shane Lowry defending. We'll do that next week. So I'm focusing on the John Deere Classic. This starts tomorrow, 12:50 Irish time in Illinois. The headline selection, Sung Jae Im, 16 to 1. I was talking about class there. How many of these players in this field would be tied second at the Masters as a rookie? Well, Sung Jae Im of Korea was last November. 23 years of age, 8th last week. All he does is live in hotels and drive around and play golf. He doesn't do anything else, it seems, at the moment. He's one of the most hardest working, relentless players. And I think 26th he was in his debut in this tournament a couple of years ago. 16 to 1 for 4 each way, Sung Jae Im. The second one, Seamus Power. I'm going with Waterford. We're up at the Blaz and the large bottles and Muldoons and the Dacia this week. 33 to 1 for 3 each way. Seamus Power has had 4 finishes inside the top 20 on his last 4 starts. Only 1 bogey last week in the whole tournament in Detroit. He's had a couple of good finishes at this tournament before, the John Deere Classic 2 inside the top 25. I think he's a good each way bet at 33s each way, Seamus Power. Doc Redman is 40 to 1 for 2 each way. Doc can be a bit in and out, but he was 8 under par halfway on his only appearance in this tournament, the John Deere Classic, a couple of years ago. I think he's a very talented player. He's 23. He's been in the last 6 events twice in the top 10 for Doc Redman each way. Doug Gim is from the state. Was once the top college golfer ahead of Colin Morikawa, was in the Walker Cup team in 2017 with Will Zalatoris, Scotty Scheffler, all these names. Local boy, 50 to 1 for 2 each way, is very good with approach shots, and he's been playing better than his results have shown. Patrick Rogers blew this a couple of years ago, back in 2017. Bryson DeChambeau hooked him late on when he was about to win. And he's been playing well, had 3 good rounds at Torrey Pines at the US Open, is a big hitter, is a good putter. If he can believe, I think he's got a chance at 70 to 1 for 2 each way. And the final one is Roger Sloan from Canada. Once again, a horse for a course, has shown a liking to this track Deer Run. 18th and 10th in 2 starts. Last week he played 3 good rounds in Detroit. He's 100 to 1 for 2 each way. So Roger Sloan, Patrick Rogers, Doug Gim, Doc Redman, our own Seamus Power, and the headline tip, Sung Jae Im. It's not about winners, it's not about losers, it's about one word, lads: profit.
Seamus Power is quite a short price for these competitions. That's a sign that a lot of people have a lot of faith in him.
Well, he was 80 to 1 last week, and now people have cottoned on and said, oh, maybe this guy's playing better than, and once again, the field is a bit weaker. But I've been looking at him closely. He is playing really well. I don't think Seamus Power has played as well on the PGA Tour. I remember in Lahinch a couple of years ago, we were all doing the interviews, and Shane was down there, and Padraig and John Ram and everything. And Seamus Power was struggling a bit. And he's coming over from the States, and he's struggling a bit. And I kind of felt sorry for him. And he's been grinding it out. Remember, he went to the Olympics in Rio, and he's won on the satellite tour, but he's never won on the PGA Tour. And for him to go and win on the PGA Tour after all those years of hard work would be some story, and it'd be just as good an achievement as any other Irish player winning a major, in my view.
Yeah, for sure. John, great stuff. Continued
lads, take
profit.
care.
Thanks a million. That's John Duggan's Virtual Insanity with you every Wednesday or Thursday mornings here on OTB AM over the course of the year. And you can read it, of course, on the OTB Sports app, which you can get free, gratis and for nothing. And that's the best place to listen to tonight's Lions match. It is the Cell C Sharks against the British and Irish Lions. We're broadcasting all of the games from the tour on Off the Ball. Devin Toner on commentary duty alongside Neil Tracy. We'll have post-match reaction live on Off the Ball on News Talk as well. But the first hour of the show, which has been moved for kick-off for the England game, obviously, you can only hear on OTB Sports Radio. We'll send out a notification, a reminder, of course, when that game kicks off. And we will expect an announcement around lunchtime too about the Lions schedule for the game this weekend as well. Our coverage brought to you in association with Vodafone, lead partner of the British and Irish Lions. And we'll have analysis on that game on the show tomorrow as well. Up next, we're going to be joined by Cavan's Conor Madden.
Cavan-based GAA club Gowna have announced a new partnership with local member-founded sports tech startup ClubSpot. ClubSpot are going to be sponsoring Gowna GAA's club grounds in a naming rights deal that is the first of its kind for a GAA club. ClubSpot Park, as it will now be known, will be the home of Gowna GAA as the small club aims to reach the top of Cavan football once again. ClubSpot creates mobile apps for sports clubs in order to help them communicate with their members and boost their revenues by providing a system to manage club news, events, messaging and online fundraising. Delighted to welcome star of Gowna, star of Cavan, Conor Madden to the show. Conor, how are you keeping?
How's it going, Owen? How's things?
Good now. Presumably this is great news for the club, and immediately it's one less thing to worry about when it comes to cobbling together resources.
Yeah, we're lucky that we have a ClubSpot founder, John Hyland, as one of our members, and John's very innovative with his thinking, and this is just one of his latest innovations that he has come up with was the renaming of the clubs. But when he said it to me first, I was wondering, but when I actually heard the whole plan of it, it's a great idea, and I'm sure clubs will adapt it across the country.
When people come up to you and talk about your goal in 2020, does your mind generally go to your goal for Cavan or that goal that you scored for Gowna last year?
I think up until probably those to the final, I probably would have said the other goal for Gowna, but it's hard to look past maybe the goal for Cavan last year and those to the final. It's definitely something to remember for a long time.
I want to get onto that in just a moment, but the goal for Gowna is incredible. For people who haven't seen it, it's a high ball into the box. You've got a knack of arriving late into the square, timing your run perfectly. It's fisted out by the goalkeeper, I think, and you catch it literally on the volley. No catching of the ball, on the volley with the right boot. Is it the right boot? I think it is.
Yeah, the right boot, yeah.
Top corner. I presume that comes from a soccer background.
No, unfortunately, there's no any soccer clubs in and around where we come from, bar just a bit of five-a-side during the winter, but no soccer clubs around here. Yeah, but it's one of those things that it's great when you pull it off. If it hadn't went in, I'm sure I would have been getting a ball from the sideline.
Why don't more forwards do that?
I'd say probably for that reason. There is a bit of a bollocking that could come, but no, look at it. I think I just thought at the time it was the best opportunity for me to get a goal, and luckily enough it came off. We actually didn't win that game, unfortunately. So
yeah,
it would have been a bit sweeter if we would have won it.
I can imagine. There was, though, a cherry on the cake of last year for you, though. Like, what was the afterglow of that Ulster final win like, Conor? The whole Christmas that follows the winter of actually being Ulster champions.
Yeah, look, it was obviously surreal. The whole fact of COVID was present at the time, it still is. But especially back then, we were under a heavy lockdown, and just for those few weeks or whatever, the month of October, November, December, it gave people at Cavan just took their mind off everything that was happening outside of football. So it was looking back on it now, it was definitely surreal, and it was something that we'll all live long in the memory. But unfortunately, we sort of brought back down there in the last couple of weeks, and with our league performances, so it's just a matter of trying to park that now and forget. As much as 2020 was sweet and we'll always remember it, it's just about trying to switch it back on now and getting focused for the upcoming championship. At
the same time, how much was the success of 2020 down to being brought down to earth by relegation at the start of last year?
Yeah, look, we're going into an Ulster Championship with a very similar sort of thing this year, because last year we had 2 poor performances just as the championship was starting against Kildare and Roscommon. So the championship actually was sort of welcome that it was a way of getting your mind off the performances in the league, and a good performance in championship and things don't belong were being forgotten. So we're sort of hoping that's the case again this year.
What is the reality of where Cavan are at then, in your view? I presume that you don't think you even deserve to be Division 3 team at this point, given you've been in Division 1 in the not too distant past. You've obviously beaten multiple Division 1 teams in the space of the last year as well. What is the level you feel that this team and this bunch of players should be at?
Yeah, look, we don't feel we are, but we are where we are, and that's something we have to face up to the reality of. And we will be playing Division 4 football next year, and look, we can have to hold our hands up and say that we've got ourselves into that position. But in saying that, we do believe that we can compete with pretty much all the teams in the country on our given day, and it's just a matter of us being able to show up and bring in the same consistency of performance to be. It doesn't matter who you're playing, be it a Division 4 or a Division 1 team. I think that's probably something that we're looking at and we're going to try and fix sort of as we progress.
Have you been able to put your finger on what the difference is, the Cavan that we saw in the championship last year and the league version of Cavan that we've seen? Because it's not just winning a championship by fluke, because you can't win an Ulster Championship by fluking your way through it.
Yeah, look, it's something that we probably have dug down into and trying to sort of get an answer for, but we probably find that our sort of performances are based on the teams we're playing, and that level of consistency is something that the top teams, that we sort of strive to try and achieve and replicate. That it doesn't matter who you're playing, that you're applying the same principles of performance against Division 1 or Division 4 teams. But it's definitely something that we need to improve on, and we've this year is just again has been sort of a realization. We've had back-to-back relegations at this stage, and we're eager to stop the slide and sort of increase or improve on our league form, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be going out every year and trying to salvage come championship.
In between the Ulster Championship and this league campaign, there was obviously a game against Dublin in between. How much did you learn from that night? Yeah,
look, I think the Dublin game was a real sort of eye opener for us. That we obviously probably have played Dublin in the league, but I think everyone would agree Dublin in the league and the championship are a different team. So just their sheer sort of aggression and their physicality is probably something that you look past when you see all the talented forwards and talented players they have. But their willingness to work hard in all areas of the field is probably something that we only really realise when it comes up against them, and it's something that we've taken from it. That it's a team that's striving for 7 in a row, and they're still applying the same pressure and the same intensity all over the field. And if we could take something from it, it'd be a big learning that that if they can apply themselves in that way, it should be an absolute fundamental for anyone trying to get up to that level.
The vast majority of people, pretty much everybody listening to this, will have never seen that up close. So can you describe what that is like when the Dubs are in that level of intensity? Yeah, it's just like, I suppose, when we played in there last year, it was in terms of there's bodies everywhere. You feel like sometimes you could be playing against 17, 18 players. And, you're never too far away from contact and being that actually comfortable on the ball. And I'm sure that's just whatever way that, they've learned to play and how to sort of communicate with each other, but they always seems to be working in 2s and 3s. You rarely get a Dublin player isolated in a sort of a one-on-one, and I think that's what we found the biggest thing, that they were definitely very hard to sort of break down, number one, but then also going up the opposite end of the field sort of made things look a bit even more simple, getting to the game line, and then the shots away even were something that they seem like they're simple enough shots they're taking, but the ability to get up and into them situations is something that it's probably unspoken about. But getting up into that area of the field is quite difficult, and they just seem to make it very easy. You've played all the big boys at this stage, like whether it's at league or obviously when it comes from the Ulster Championship as well. So is that just something that no other team has, that relentless ability to feel like it's 17 men on the pitch? Yeah, look, I suppose saying that we've played a lot of number of teams, through Division 1 and then also the Championship, and some teams can bring that
that level of aggression. But I think it's the whole rounded nature of the Dublin team, that it's not just that they bring that level of aggression and physicality, but then they also have the skill sets that if you try and they can mix it up, and they can play a kicking game, they can move the ball through the lines. It's their ability to probably switch up the play and cater to whatever sort of any team or opposition puts in front of them is probably something that we probably wouldn't have been used to. And I think that's probably what has kept them a level above everybody else.
So what have you done differently in training this year or in preparation for this year's Ulster Championship?
I suppose, look, it was probably a shortened enough season, so we probably used the league. I'm not trying to make excuses, but we probably used the league as sort of to try and implement some new areas of a game plan, or not even new areas of a game, but bring some of them principles that I've just spoken about to our play in terms of that, relentless aggression. And it's not something that you can just, it's something that we would have thought we would have been able to bring before this, but bringing it up to another level is something that we're trying to, get to. But it's not going to happen overnight. Like top teams, they've been doing that for a couple of years, year in, year out, and they're still always trying to perfect it. So it's just a matter of being able to apply it in training, but then the big thing is applying it in games.
And is that a mental challenge, Conor, do you think, or is it a physical one?
It's definitely a bit of both. It's not all done on a training field. There's a lot of analysis done away from the field as well, and that as well is a major sort of part in becoming sort of reaching new levels. And I think that's one area that we've tried to work on in the last probably 12 to 18 months is what our work is away from the field. And I think that's probably hopefully something that we'll see come true in the next while.
Just one other thing I wanted to ask you about. We had Enda McGinley on the show yesterday morning, and we were asking him about what sort of championship he'd like to be managing in next year as interim manager. What's your take on that? What sort of championship do you want to be playing in next year, given, I guess, that there is a world in which Cavan could be in a second tier, given you're coming from a low enough base? I guess it all depends on special congress. But are you enjoying the way the championship has been pre-COVID? Are you kind of like a leave it and let us compete?
I suppose up in Ulster especially, we all sort of have a view of a very competitive championship. And, there has been, even though Donegal, Tyrone probably have dominated to a certain extent, there seems to be a bit more competition. So we'd be probably more of the traditional mindset of view that we sort of want the championship kept the same. But then we have to be realistic as well. You have Dublin who are going for some money in a row, and Leinster. There's teams in Leinster that, and if we were in Leinster, we'd probably be one of those teams saying that something needs to be changed. But I definitely think if in some way they can the GAA can keep the provincials and keep the merit that's involved with that competition, but then also having a competition that's available to your Division 3 and Division 4 counties, and giving them a realistic goal and realistic achievements. I think that is also very important. Not just also having a Division 3 and Division 4. Or, your Charlton Cup for the sake of having a Charlton Cup, and giving it that a bit of credit as well, and a bit of everything that goes with that. Look, it's never going to be the Sam Maguire, but I think the GAA probably need to try and make it as attractive for players to buy into in those sort of, what you would say, weaker counties.
For sure, rather than, I think McGinley put it, that it will be the Losers' Cup, the way it's these things are sometimes framed, rather than it being a sort of inter-county version of what you might be going for with regards to a junior or intermediate club championship.
Exactly. If in every county in Ireland, the club championships mean so much to every club, junior, intermediate, or senior. So I think if the GAA really think hard about it, I'm sure that they can do that in an inter-county setting also.
It's obviously not going to be something you'll be looking to compete in anytime soon. Tyrone this weekend, I presume this is something you're looking at as a stepping stone rather than a potential giant killing after what happened last.
Yeah, look, it's we've played Tyrone a number of times in the last number of years, and we've probably come out the wrong side in it each time. So it's definitely, apart from that, it's one of those things that we want to be able to say that we went up to home and pull up a victory. But look, we're under no illusions that how difficult of a task it's going to be. And look, Tyrone are under new management. I'm sure they have a point to prove as well. So look, we just have to worry about ourselves. But I'm sure we feel like we're in a good position. The few weeks off since the league's finished has sort of get that opportunity to play a few challenge matches and get a couple of injuries and work on a few things that we obviously didn't go to plan in the league. So I think we're happy enough with where we are at going into the Ulster Championship.
Just a reminder as well, before we let you go to Cavan-based GA club Gowna have announced a new partnership with local member-founded sports tech startup Club Spot. So Club Spot are going to be sponsoring Gowna GA's club grounds in a naming rights deal that is the first of its kind for a GEA club. I should mention as well, Club Spot Park will be the home of Gowna GEA as the small club aims to reach the top of Cavan football once more. And Club Spot creates mobile apps for sports clubs in order to help them communicate with their members and boost their revenues by providing a system to manage club news, events, messaging and online fundraising. Conor Madden, best of luck against Tyrone. We'll chat to you again soon.
Cheers, Owen. Thanks very much.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
I'm tipping Italy and England.
It's still on.
And then whether or not England, it's either coming home or it's time to say goodbye. But we'll see.
Oh, I can't wait.
For the best Euro 2020 coverage, subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for quick start insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
15 minutes past 9 here this morning on OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. I just want to point everybody in the direction of the Euros Daily Show with Sheahan. It's broadcast live every day from 11 o'clock, and over the course of the entire campaign, myself and Shane and Nathan have been locked in a battle which was very one-sided. I'm not going to lie. Shane got out to an early lead in terms of the predictions. I went a bit wild and crazy in the group stage, just having a bit of crack. But the old dog for the hard road. Here, is this yesterday's predictions? What's the 20 Italy versus Spain draw? I didn't say draw. I said 1-1 draw. Italy to win on penalties.
Oh, wow.
I got the whole thing.
Extra points?
100% correct.
Do you get extra points for that?
Well, I got the score correct after 90 minutes. I got the score correct after extra time. I got the score correct after penalties.
It's impressive.
That should be 3 points, right?
Yeah, no. Like me.
You're the quiz master.
Kildare under 20s. Now this. What 12 hours it has been for you?
I mean, obviously don't want to ruin it by making a prediction for tonight's game, but like...
Give us your prediction then.
Well, Jordan Pickford error. But maybe even to survive.
1-0 Denmark?
No, I don't know. I think it's going to work. Phil, good morning to you.
Morning. Sure, I'll be looking for the lotto numbers off you after the show. But I'm pretty sure as well you would have predicted Morata would miss his penalty.
I mean, I at that stage, I kind of wanted Spain to win because they played so well. And poor Morata, like death threats and the crisis of confidence that he's endured, to get dropped. And then the goal that he scored was so brilliant. And then, like it wasn't Kylian Mbappe, he's just had a bad tournament.
No, it was, do you know what, the goal was brilliant, and to do it against Chiellini and Bonucci, who Morata obviously knows really well. He talked about what it was like to train against Chiellini, trying to survive in a cage with a gorilla and trying to take food off the gorilla. But Morata got some food last night, and then you were thinking, right, Spain are in the driving seat to go on and win this. But at no point did I think he was going to score that penalty. And it's just, he's missed penalties before. Spain haven't had a great record of penalties, but you often think, should somebody just have a word with him and say, look, love your confidence, you get knocked down, you get back up again, but maybe you shouldn't take one of the 5 penalties.
Did you see Jorginho shouting at his goalkeeper to tell him where Morata was going to go with it? Like, I mean, Jorginho obviously probably have keeping a close eye on Morata's penalties down through the years. I'm giving him credit basically for Donnarumma saving it.
Yeah, well, we saw earlier in the tournament, wasn't it, Pepe had a go at Patricio because he didn't guess right for penalties. So when someone shouts at you which way to go, you're probably best off going that way. And then if you get it wrong, say, well, blame them. But look, I was looking at the penalty shootout from the Argentina-Colombia game last night, and Emi Martinez doesn't need any of that. He actually, all 3 of his penalty saves came on the same side. So
Arsenal obviously has a much better goalkeeper than him, though. There's no way that Emi Martinez would have been a better decision by Arsenal to keep him. Under no circumstances are we, as a show, suggesting that. Yes, we are.
The great thing though is that Arsenal are so bad that a goalkeeper could not change their fortunes. That, like the Yerry Mina saved penalty from Emi Martinez. There's obviously a bit of yapping going on one side. So like somebody on Twitter has at Socratic Juan has translated it, and Emiliano to Mina before saving the penalty. You're nervous, eh? I can tell you're nervous. I know where you're going to shoot. Watch and see how I'm going to eat you up. And eat him up he did, and then gives it the big hip thrust as a celebration. It's amazing. I mean, like, for no other reason, like, even if Emi Martinez was crap, I would want him back at Arsenal right now for that sort of stuff.
Well, you can't have him.
I know. Emi Martinez is I don't know, he will do something even bigger in his career over the next little while.
No, he's going to qualify for the Champions League with Villa. That's what's going to happen. That'll be his moment. Or maybe they'll win a league Leicester style. Who knows? These things can happen.
Like this.
Yeah, he's also he could be the man that helps Messi get that elusive Copa America, and then he's in the circle of trust with Messi for life.
Barcelona.
Shut up, Owen. Messi doesn't even play for Barcelona at the moment.
Well, true. He
maybe he's going to come to Villa. Maybe that's what happens.
Barca can't buy players really, though, can they?
No.
No, I'm sure they could find some way at some point with some weird swap deals, but maybe Villa don't want their cast outs. We got sidetracked there. I do want one last point before it is actually a sidetrack point as well. Watching the game, particularly in the first half and the second half, and before extra time where everybody got a bit tired, that game was Champions League quality. That game was as good a game of football in terms of the technical proficiency, the tactical acumen of the managers, the tactical acumen of the players, their ability to, off the cuff, just do different things as any football match I've seen. And I would put that up there with the Champions League semi-finals where we were like, oh, sports washing really works because look at the quality of football. It's mesmerising. The quality of the football last night was absolutely mesmerising.
Yeah, absolutely. No coincidence as well, though. You mentioned the 2 managers, 2 successful club managers. And it just shows that if you have a really good manager at the international level, the difference it can make. And I felt, obviously, going into the game, the questions about Italy were, what would they be like when they were tested against one of the big boys? And obviously, they passed that against Belgium. Last night was different. They really had to dig in because Spain owned the ball, and Spain will do that to any team. But Italy kind of reverted back to the Italy we're more accustomed to, where they can sit in, and we know they enjoy defending, and they picked their moments. They actually came on strong, I thought, in the second period of extra time. And you thought maybe they might be able to push for a winner. But I felt watching the game in terms of, I was trying to think ahead of tonight's game, I would be leaning towards England winning. And I was thinking, who would England rather play? Would it be Italy or Spain? I think they would have rather played Spain, even though Spain would have the majority of possession. England could get at them in terms of set pieces. Laporte doesn't look comfortable, that ball down the side, and Unai Simon certainly didn't look comfortable at times. And I think Italy will really fancy it now, regardless of who they play. They've got that really good run, that unbeaten run they're going on. They've got Mancini, and there's just a great spirit in the camp. And yeah, I think it's going to be hard to stop the Italians, regardless of who they play.
Just to labour the point one last time, we've been told so often that the Champions League is the best football you're ever going to see because they can buy the best players and put them all in the best teams, and I totally accept that. But international football was supposed to be much further behind. That's not the case anymore. That's certainly not the case at the moment.
No, in certain games, I don't think tonight's game will be on the same level. But if you look at the players that were on the pitch last night, how many of them are playing Champions League football on a regular basis? The majority of them are. Obviously, there's a few unsung heroes in the Italian squad, which will be with less traditional clubs. But the big guns on the pitch last night, they play Champions League football. The 2 managers, one of them has won the Champions League. So it's no surprise to see that. We, as good as this tournament has been, we have seen a few dud games and more limited managers and limited teams. But yeah, I think that anyone that kind of gives out about international football when there might be a break for qualifiers, you just have to think back to major tournaments. This is what it's all for. So, you might have a bad qualifier or a bad international break, but just think of the end game. Just think of what's in store a few years down the line. And I just think it's been a great tournament. Maybe it's the fact that we've been starved of football with an atmosphere and a meaning and a purpose, that it's just really been lit up by the atmosphere at these grounds. We mentioned there, obviously, the Copa America. Brazil and Argentina are going to play this weekend with no fans. It's just not the same.
No.
And it's all about the scarcity of it as well, Phil. Like, I saw a quote yesterday from Christian Prudhomme, who's the race director of the Tour de France, and they're going up Mont Ventoux today, and he says that Mont Ventoux is legendary for everyone who loves cycling, but it shouldn't be tasted too often. It has to make itself desired and stay special. Its rarity only accentuates the legend. And that's the same for a major football tournament. Like, I'm not having any of this Arsene Wenger every second year nonsense.
No, I was going to say, if you could have a word with Arsene Wenger, because, yeah, the more often we get it, then we just become accustomed to it and used to it. But yeah, and the fact as well, we've obviously had to wait 5 years for this Euros, and it was obviously called off last summer, so we've had to wait that little bit longer, but it really has delivered. And, you know, there's still 2 games left. I think, as I said, I don't think tonight's game will be as good, just given the fact that the teams involved are not as good as the teams that were involved last night, but the final could be good. Because I think Italy will have a go at whoever they play. I think Italy, as I said, I don't think it was a choice that they wanted to play the way they did last night. I think that's just the way they had to play, because Spain are just that good.
Spain were brilliant. Like
Pedri, my God, like 18 years of age. I know we've talked about him before on the show. Graham Hunter's talked about him in glowing terms, and people mightn't have seen that much of him, but anyone that watched him last night or over the last few games, this kid is unbelievable.
Yeah, really ballsy. And like, I'd like to see what Ansu Fati would have done if he'd been fit as well, because there's talk that he's just as good. And look, the injury obviously is depriving us. But like, that last few seasons of Messi, assuming he stays at Barcelona, is going to be pretty remarkable, because they've managed to rebuild, and they will be rebuilding around him on the back of this kid who seems like is absolutely sensational. Quick question, should Mancini drop Immobile for the final?
I wasn't impressed with him last night. Wasn't impressed with him against Belgium. I thought at times against Belgium he took on shots when it wasn't there, and he got smothered and should have just passed it off. It's a tough one, because if you drop him, then what does that do to him? Maybe you get the Morata reaction where he's on the bench and you bring him on and he's full of fire. And if you keep him in there and he scores, then you're justified and vindicated for saying it, keeping faith, which something Gareth Southgate has done with Harry Kane, where people were talking about him earlier in the tournament, saying maybe Harry Kane isn't fit for this, but you stick with them and then they repay that faith that you show in them. But it's a final, it's a one-off game. I would be leaning towards maybe take him out of the team. He's just not up to it at the moment.
Okay, big call. Mancini makes those big calls though, and we'll see. What about tonight's team? Who is Gareth Southgate going to pick from the array of riches that he's had, that he's juggled very well so far, but now it's really shit or bust time? What's it going to do?
I don't see how he's going to change from the back four. Now, there is some talk that he might go back 3, because obviously Denmark play back 3. Now, Denmark have shown they're quite accustomed to be able to change that during the game. I think back to the Wales game where Ramsey was getting too much space and Christensen just was pushed into midfield, and that just changed the whole setup. But if he does go with the 4-2-3-1, Gareth Southgate, that is, then I can't see why he would make a change to the back 4. Obviously, his 2 in midfield. And then it's basically, does he stick with Sancho? So Sterling plays, Kane plays. Does he stick with Sancho? Does he bring in someone like Jack Grealish and move Sterling over to the right-hand side? Bukayo Saka is available again. I thought Saka was worth his place for the Germany game, but probably didn't do enough to retain it. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the one call maybe he has to make. Now, he could throw in a surprise and change one of the midfielders, but I'd be very surprised with that. I think, look, we know how England are going to play. If they get the first goal, it's very hard to see them being beat.
Is there a possibility he picks Jordan Henderson to get the game time into him with an eye on a potential final if they make it there?
Do you know what? I don't think he's thought like that at all throughout this tournament. I think that was proven in the last round where we knew England were going to beat Ukraine, but he kept faith with the two holding midfielders, even though they were both on yellow cards. So I don't think Southgate, I think he really has taken it one game at a time, and as much as he wants to, he'd love to dream of the final, can't do it just yet, because Denmark are, they're ranked 10th in the world.
Yeah.
Obviously, before the tournament, a lot of people had picked them as a dark horse because they just have a really strong spine to their team. Obviously, Eriksson was crucial to that. We know what happened in the game against Finland. We saw the reaction it got in the first half against Belgium. But then that performance against Russia just gave them the confidence. And I just think it's going to be a real slog tonight. You know, the fact that it's a semi-final, it's an occasion. I don't think anyone tuning in can expect what we saw last night, but it's still going to be a fascinating game because
I think
there's a chance to reach a final.
But I think the tension could be every bit as high as last night because of what's at stake, and you know what's at stake. We know what's at stake. Like, it's football getting home. I mean,
yeah, it's on the way home. It just needs to jump in the bus and just take those final couple of stops. But
well, it needs to make sure that it stops off and pays due deference to whatever funeral is in the town, just in case there's a curse. What does this mean for Mayo, Phil, if they win?
I don't know. Yeah. Nathan Murphy's your man there. He usually has the backup stats, so the correlation of what it wins.
They're the two big ones, though, Phil, aren't they? England winning a major tournament and Mayo winning the All-Ireland. So I'm sure Nathan will tell you it's 1951 rather than 1966 when England actually won the World Cup, if you actually check your facts.
Right, give me your prediction, Phil.
I think England are going to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they get it done in the 90 minutes. Just won't be pretty, but they get it done. And then if it's Italy-England, I think Italy will beat England in the final.
Okay, right. Right. I mean,
I think I'll go along with that, yeah.
Okay, all right. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million. Enjoy the game.
Thanks.
You can hear more from Phil across the day on Today FM, and of course you can read his stuff on otbsports.com. Coming up on OTB Sports Radio between now and the 5 o'clock kickoff, 5 o'clock coverage kickoff for the Lions game against the Sharks this evening. It's obviously a 6 p.m. kickoff, and you can hear the rest of the match live from 7 o'clock on Off the Ball on News Talk. The Euro show, as I said, with Sheahan is live at 11 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, OTB Gold is the Catherine Switzer interview. Mount Rushmore is Leitrim. Our retro panel is Dealing with Disappointment at 4 o'clock. Live commentary of the Lions against the Cell C Sharks this evening. That game kicking off at 6 o'clock with Devon Toner alongside Neil Tracy in the commentary box for you. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes. It's very helpful for us. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those things go a long way to helping us out. You can, as I said, tune in on the radio this evening from 7 o'clock on Off the Ball and News Talk. But if you want the first half of the game, the only place to get it is OTB Sports Radio. You can get that easiest on the apps, or you can tell your smart speaker to play OTB Sports Radio on TuneIn. In the meantime, to whet your appetite for what's happening tonight, it is Steve McLaren talking with Joe Malloy. Enjoy.
Now you're welcome back. So on this, the eve of England-Denmark at Euro 2020, who better to talk to than a man who's been the England manager, who was assistant to Sven-Goran Eriksson at 3 major tournaments, and who signed Gareth Southgate, the player, made him his captain at Middlesbrough. I am, of course, talking about Steve McLaren, who is with us, who's also technical director at Derby these days. Steve, how you doing?
I'm very good, Joe. How are you?
Great. Good to have you with us. Can I start in an odd place for a second? Have you seen the new Alex Ferguson documentary on Amazon?
I haven't. I'm waiting for one of them quiet moments where I've got the house to myself. I can sit down, lay down, relax and enjoy it, because I've heard it's one hell of a treat, very emotional and a true reflection of the man himself.
They do a really interesting thing for the final in Barcelona in '99. Without any talking or commentary, they just have the camera fixed on the sideline. And it's fantastic theatre. And the moment when Sheringham scores the first goal, you all go ballistic, obviously, and then you run over to Ferguson. And it looks like, I would presume, I don't know how well you remember these moments, but I presume you're thinking extra time, what changes do we need to make?
Absolutely. Being pragmatic and unbelievable to be in that situation. Back in the game, I thought, oh, right, let's get ready. It's not enough time to kick off and to score again, and it will be extra time. But no, the gaffer said, no, sit down, Steve, this game's not over. And as usual, he was right.
What set him apart, Steve, as a matter of interest? We will get on to England, don't worry, but it's not every day you get to talk to someone who saw Ferguson work firsthand the way you did.
No, I think he was a winner, one hell of a competitor, and he was a consistent winner. So winning after winning is very difficult, but he mastered the art of that. He'd win like the treble. We won that. I wanted a holiday. I was exhausted. Expected 3 weeks away. And after the celebrations, ticket take, the bus journey around the city, he said, see you tomorrow 9 o'clock at the Cliff. Bacon butties, cup of tea, put your medals away. What we're going to do next season. Oh. And that sets him apart from anybody else, because people win. Oh, no, okay, the manager may be on it, but the players are not. He made sure he was on it. He made sure the staff was on it, and the players when they came back. A serial winner who had tremendous trust, and trust is a big thing, with his staff, with his players. He trusted them to do the job. They knew what they had to do. And I think the key thing was he was so adaptable to be successful for a few years. A decade is a miracle. 27 years, so many trophies, is testament to his adaptability in terms of creating one team, dismantling it, creating another team, dismantling it. So knowing the kind of characters, the kind of players that were his players, Manchester United players and winners. And them three ingredients were integral to his success.
Was he very involved in your coaching? You had a great reputation as a young coach. Did he want to know what you were doing, why you were doing it?
No, he from the first day, trust, I said, was a big thing. And first day I went into his office, we'd just beaten Notts Forest 8-1. And I wondered what the hell to coach on a Monday morning. And I asked him, what do I coach? And he just said, what did you coach at Derby? And before I got the answer out, he said, that's why you're here. Go out there and coach. Never told me a thing, so I had a clean sheet of paper. And he trusted me to do the job. And that was key. There was a lot of pressure, don't get me wrong, but it was the key, knowing that he could come out to training, he could walk around, he could have his influence over individual players, but he let me do all the coaching, and that takes courage and guts. But he's had many years of that, and he came alive on match days. They were his days, match days, the game, winning. And my job was just making sure we got the players ready Monday to Friday for Saturday.
Were the players a demanding bunch when it came to your sessions?
Oh, wow, yeah. I think, the gaffer was demanding of them, demanding of his staff. If you couldn't do the job, you were gone, without a doubt.
Nice.
And but the players were so tested. It was war every day. I like to keep training intense and competitive, and keep it on a line.
Yeah.
Go over the line, we have chaos. Go under the line, it's too quiet, it's sterile.
Yeah.
Just try to keep it on that line, and many, many times we went over. But it showed me the top level, top players, top management, environment, culture, what it was all about. It was the kind of finishing school for me at coaching.
So if Roy Keane didn't think your session was up to much, he might let you know, I suspect.
Most definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. And he did many times. We had a few eruptions, as we did with other players.
One last thing on Ferguson to ask you about. It seemed, looking in from afar, he had this unbelievable knack of picking the right team for certain games. Like, there were times where you'd see a Ferguson team sheet and think, I didn't quite see that coming. And then invariably, things would work out just fine.
I think he had a squad of players that they could all do the job, and he trusted them to do the job. And if they couldn't do the job, they were out very quickly. So he had 25, 26 players who he knew he could rotate. He could pull in and out, play them in some games, get them ready for other games. And that was his masterstroke.
Yeah.
Managing the season. And you're absolutely right. I once had a conversation with Jordi Cruyff. I said, God, you've worked with him, a couple of years. What is it about him? He said, he gets every decision right. He makes changes. It works.
Yeah.
He makes changes in the game, formation, personnel. You don't know what he's doing. You think he hasn't got a clue, and you win the game.
Yeah.
He scores a goal. Andy Cole's a perfect example. Half-time, we're losing 1-0 against Tottenham. It brings him on at half-time. 2 minutes later, Andy Cole scores the goal. He scores the winner. So he has that unbelievable knack. Call it experience, just knowledge, just keeping the players on the toes, ready when they're asked to play. He was unbelievable at that.
Yeah, a one-off. So England at a major tournament. You've been to Japan and Korea. You were at the Euros in 2004, 2006 under Sven. What did you learn from tournament football, Steve? And what are you seeing at the moment from England?
One, you have to get out the group. Once you get into the knockout stages, it can be a lottery. Anybody can win it. And the defining moments have to go your way. So you've got to make sure, like Muller in Germany, who went through one-on-one, he has to miss to go your way. And things have to go for you. Look, referees' decisions, whatever it may be. You always have a penalty shootout, invariably, and you have to win that. And you have to make sure that you keep 11 players on the field, because even though you can be the best team with 10 players, you never win, not at this level. We've had that a couple of times. Lost players never won, knocked out of tournaments. So you may be the best team, but not necessarily the best team wins the tournament in the end. You have to be pragmatic. England have been that. You have to take your opportunities, your chances, and make sure that, be that 3-5%, which I know they put a figure to it, but that 3 or 5% has to go your way.
Of that golden generation around that time, it's something I really wanted to get your thoughts on. Gary Neville's talked about it. Other players have talked about it. 1 to 11, it was a phenomenal lineup, a phenomenal collection of players. And there were times where Neville and others would say they would come off the pitch against lesser opposition and they would have been, come off worse in possession, for instance, and kind of scratching our heads as to how that's happened. What's your perspective on that? I'd be fascinated to hear.
I believed in them days, golden generation. I believe we had a good 11, 12, 13 players, one that could win a tournament. But from my experience, every tournament we went to, we were always exhausted at the end of the Premier League season.
Right.
Always tired. 7, 8 games in a tournament, you need energy and you need to rotate. I don't think we had the depth of squad that the current squad has.
Right.
Therefore, we were vulnerable in games. And I think that was a key one. We got injuries. Once we got injuries to big players, like we had once with Beckham, once with Rooney, and especially the Rooney one. Once you lose your best player, then it diminishes you a lot. We did not have, like England have now, 25, 26 players of a level who can compete technically, tactically, physically, and mentally with the other opponents. We have now developed our players over the last 10 years through the Premier and the FA initiatives, through EPPP, through Dan Ashworth, Jed Roddy, who set the principles in place. And Gareth was at the start of this as well, as head of development in terms of the players working at grassroots schools. He bought into it and he's seen how the academies of the clubs in England have developed, have a performance program and are producing players technically as good as any in the world. Tactically now can adapt because they're doing that in the Premier League, they're doing that in Europe every day. They can adapt to different tactics. Physically, they play with such power, intensity, and the key thing is speed. We have got so much speed in our squad and power in our squad. Physically, we are above the rest in Europe. And mentally, we're building that belief and confidence that we are a good team. Once we win a trophy, and I hope it's this trophy, the Euros, I believe we can dominate for many years, a little bit like Spain did, a little bit like Germany did. And they did the same as what we've done for the last 10 years. Germany did the same, failed in a tournament, reevaluated, got to work, coached the coaches, develop the talent, get them playing competitive football, best versus the best. And they produced a winning World Cup team and Euro team. Same with Spain, they did the same. It took failure on England's part to look at themselves, look inward, get the resources to develop coaches, develop the talent, get them into competitions, audit the academies, make sure that they're at a standard. And look what we're producing. We're producing player after player, young player after young player. And players now, in my day with England, were never sought after in Europe. There was no respect from Europe of our players. Now, there is huge respect from Europe of all our players.
You're one of the few people who knows the reality of being in that job, and there is so much scrutiny and so much pressure. It seems like Gareth Southgate's handled it very well in so many ways. I mean, your first press conference, first question, in fact, first press conference, because Scolari had been in for the job and then withdrew his candidacy. And so you sit down, and at this stage, Middlesbrough have been to UEFA Cup final. You've won a cup, international experience over the years, European football. And how does it feel, Steve, to be second choice? Boom, up and running. Welcome to the big time.
Yeah, that's right. And then many, you know, in that era, we were talking about the media attention and how there was a big divide, and, you know, there was so much criticism of the players, and the players were always looking at the marks in the paper. I didn't like the criticism.
Yeah.
And there was a fear playing for England, and I think that's been spoken about. And it was definitely there. And I just look, and one thing a snapshot of the past and the present showed the players cooling down in a swimming pool, messing about in the water with unicorns and inflatables, and playing like 5-6-year-olds, enjoying life, enjoying each other, enjoying the company. Could you imagine 20 years ago the England players and that photograph being in the media? It would have been ridiculed at that time. So that's quite an interesting analogy.
Well, isn't it fascinating to see the way media has changed, and who knows why that is? Maybe media are more aware of players' mental health. Maybe it's just the media aren't as powerful. Like, you know, right through from the treatment Bobby Robson was on the receiving end, through to Graham Taylor and the turn-up, the vilification of players who missed penalties, Beckham sending off in '98, through to Sven and you. It was scapegoating, media very powerful. Like, you take the turn-up, Graham Taylor, like how many people in their 20s and 30s are going out to buy the paper the next day anyway? You know, that power is sort of gone. But I think you were one of the last, I would say, to have that vicious tabloid treatment, and the media culture then was tough, and the expectations were so high. So you were at the right at the cutting edge of that, I would have said. I don't know what it was like to be in the middle of that storm.
Yeah, of course there was pressure, and to deal with the media is part of the job, you know. But I think, you know, Capello after didn't have success, and Roy, you know, with the Iceland result, was also vilified. So I think it carried on. And the difference is England are winning. They've got a good team, young players coming through. and they've got the talent and been handled very well in the modern day player, the modern day era, the modern day of social media, and everything that is going on with mental health. Gareth is the perfect person to deal with that. Why? Because many of them players, in fact, probably all of them players playing for England, he has known from a very young age because he took the 21s. And so he has a tremendous connection with them players. He has a story with every one of them players that he's playing. It's why he trusts Sterling. It's why he trusts Mount. You know, and that comes from many years of developing a relationship. And, you know, other managers wouldn't have that relationship that he has. And he's perfect for that. And his temperament is perfect for that. You know, he was my first signing at Middlesbrough. And I bought him. Why? Because I wanted a leader that epitomised what I wanted on and off the field. And he epitomised that. He was a winner. He did everything right. He was so professional. First in, last away. But the key thing was he brought people together. There were no cliques. He used to have meals on different tables. There were cliques. He would be there in different tables every meal time, making sure that everybody was together. He was the glue that gelled them and brought that club together. And you see that with England. England look like a club team now, not an international team where nowadays Manchester United players came together, Liverpool, Chelsea, there was a lot of rivalry. Doesn't seem that now. No. And I think it's a different era in the players. They don't feel like that. And I think because of his personality and his demeanour, his level, his temperament, they follow him. And they're demonstrating it too.
Yeah, sure. You see players in tunnels now. It's high fives and hugs, and it's not as vitriolic as it once was. You described your era. I was just having a quick read. You said bit muddled early on, which was an interesting comment. Muddled how? Because you would have had a lot of experience at that stage. You'd seen Sven do the job. You got off to an okay start initially. Where did the muddling come in, or what did you mean by muddling?
Just trying to take the team to maybe a different level, and maybe going too quick and not sticking to what England were good at. So it's a little bit like being pragmatic. And I can understand, Gareth being pragmatic very early on in the tournament to get through the group stage. And he really opened up against Ukraine. And that was probably the moment to do that. And possibly I started okay in terms of being pragmatic and what was working before, but I wanted to try some things. And when they didn't work, then that's when obviously the criticism came. Yeah. And you accept that because you have to win with England. And so maybe I did that in the middle. And then by the time I'd worked that out, we were in trouble in the group. And it was one game too many with Croatia and injuries, and things just didn't seem to go our way. Yeah. Like we say about winning tournaments, you have to have a look. And it seemed in that game looked deserted us.
Yeah, it did a bit. Because 2007, there were wins. As you said, looking back, there was a nice run of beating Israel and beating Russia and Estonia, and then bad result in Moscow, and the pressure is on that night in Croatia, and Scott Carson makes a mistake he's not going to make many times in his life, and it happens on that night, and who knows why it does. And Croatia, little known Croatia in some ways, there's a 22-year-old kid called Luka Modric, who it turns out was a very good player, and there's a 19-year-old called Rakitic, and all these guys, we know how good that team was. And then a Wally with a brolly and all of this stuff. What's your strongest memory of that night?
It's strange, isn't it? Because the first half, what a disaster, 2-0 down.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of my best half times in my career.
Right.
In terms of changes and galvanising the team.
You brought Beckham on, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. 2-2.
Yeah.
and thinking that's job done. And then obviously another unbelievable strike from 35 yards, and bottom corner. Had opportunities after that, but it was probably the game epitomised probably my reign with England, like a roller coaster, up and down. A thrill of the ride, as they say. And unfortunately, I came off the rails at the end.
Do you drive home that night or back to the hotel, I'm not sure which it was, and think to yourself, I'm done here, I'm toast, that's just over now?
Yeah, obviously you do know that, because that's the expectation, you have to win. And so that was no problem. It's a case of recovering from that and going again.
How do you recover from something like that?
Yeah, good support around you, good family. And, you know, I was young at the time, which helped. Still ambitious. And I think, you know, because of my experiences with Derby in the beginning, with Manchester United, with England, with Middlesbrough, and then with England, I had something to prove, you know. So I felt I climbed Everest, came down very quickly, and dust myself down and wanted to climb Everest again.
When you're offered that job, you can't say no to that job. Did anyone in your circle say, not so sure, Steve?
Yes, yeah. There's always one who keeps phoning me up and telling me that I shouldn't have done it, but I'd do it all again. Yeah. There's only a certain amount of times you get offered that job and the opportunity, and yeah, for all that, it's given me so many other opportunities around the world. Not just, you know, I could have stayed and played safe at Middlesbrough and carried on in England and played safe, but I didn't. But still, in Europe and around the world, you know, once you're manager of one of the biggest nations in the world, then you know, it gives you opportunities to travel, work abroad, be abroad, you know, and being involved in FIFA, UEFA. So no, I don't regret it at all, and I'd do it again.
Yeah. Well, we'd all do things differently, I suppose. It's not easy, is it? I saw you say a sports psychologist advised you afterwards to take to your cave or your room or wherever you need to go for some kind of reprieve and just to write everything down, get it out of the system.
Yeah, that's right. And many people talk about keeping a journal every day. You know, I didn't do that, but I made sure that, you know, after that, yeah, I had to sit in a cave. I couldn't go out there. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't go anywhere. So I was locked in the cave, not by choice, but so it was interesting to reflect. But yeah, many years ago, and we're trying to move on. So thanks for reminding me.
Sorry. It's that time in England manager.
We're trying to be positive about England.
I know. Sorry, I'm terrible. And that's, well, look, I'm talking about God, the media are terrible, and here I am bringing it up again. But I guess, as you said, it's such a high-profile job, and it's such a, you know, interesting part of your career, I suppose. The Wally with the Brolly thing, sorry to bring that up, that's a particularly kind of stupid and cheap thing. And yet, isn't it terrible how something like that sticks? I presume that's mentioned to you whenever you talk about your England regime. The bloody umbrella, as ridiculous as it is, I guarantee you gets mentioned to you.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like, you know, with Turnip and Sven the Swede and things like that, you know what you're going into. And, you know, when you know, go out of, don't qualify for a tournament, you got to take what you get.
Yeah.
And that's what I've had to do. And, yeah. And grow a thicker skin, as they say, and carry on with life.
Did you feel like you were being ridiculed around that time with, you know, a headline like that and just the treatment of you trying to do your best, even if it hasn't gone well? Did it feel like, oh, this is, you know, a bit like the Turnip thing, this is a humiliation territory? Did you feel like lines were crossed, or is all fair game?
No, that's what you know in the job. And I knew that. I'd worked with Sven, and how many episodes we'd had with Sven over the years, that I was, you know, in every press conference with him, and so I knew what the job. But I took it. It was a big gamble, big risk, but I'd do it again.
It must have made you a better manager, ironically.
I think so. And all experiences, if you learn, make you better. But I think so. And so I got back on the bike and carried on, and I think I always wanted to stay involved in football, and reaching old age, and I'm still involved, so I'm delighted with that.
You rebounded brilliantly in Holland. Did the phone go cold in England? Like an England manager, things not going well, you can almost be written off, I would think, in the English game. Is that why you went to Holland?
I couldn't get a job in England. No, you're absolutely right. Mentioned for a job, no, not him. So the only thing for me then was to try and get some reputation back in by going abroad. And Holland was good, a good rebound for me.
Roy Hodgson in some ways must be like the inspiration for a lot of managers.
Yeah, I think him and Sir Bobby, the late Sir Bobby as well, who visited many times and had chats with many times. He was the first one. Yeah, go to Holland. He said, go on your own. He said, you'll love it. He was obviously there with PSV and won the league with them. So he told me to go, get over there, and it was wise words and a wise move.
Technical director now with Derby. You must miss the grass, do you? Working with players day to day. Do you still have ambitions to get back doing that, or are you enjoying the role now?
No, I'm fortunate that I asked to come here, and Wayne Rooney took the reins. We made him manager, and he's an experienced and needs help and needs experience around him. So I'm very lucky. I'm on the field. I've just come off the field actually. We've just started pre-season. First 11v11, and it's great. Sun shining. The players are competing, and it's great being back on the grass.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new